Welcome to Fit Club Vegas, the ultimate fitness destination for visitors. Drop in for a day pass and experience our 10,000 square foot fitness playground. At Fit Club, you'll find state-of-the-art equipment and a sound system so good you'll ditch your headphones. Conveniently located 7 to 12 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, Fit Club is a perfect spot for you to come get your pump while visiting Sin City. So come check us out at 4525 West Hacienda, Las Vegas, Nevada. Fit Club Vegas, more than a gym, it's a vibe. All right, so we're back for another episode. We have the master in the house. So you want to announce him, or
no? I'm gonna let you, because you've known him for more than half of your life.
So I don't know. I always say, we always have these guests but this guy, the history of he and I go back further than anyone in the sport. Probably anyone that I have a relationship with in bodybuilding. I mean, Chris Aceto, welcome to our podcast. Finally, how long have we been talking about this? When we started this, when was it? 2020. And I said, I remember the first thing Matt said, Chris Aceto was number one.
Chris Aceto, running the Coleman.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. I'm better than.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah. And
I have Coleman stories too.
I know. So for many of, everyone kind of knows who Chris is and knows the history, but man, a long way since coming to Eustis. How it's and coming to Gold's Gym, and man, think about those days. I mean, we met back in 1992.
I was literally just gonna say,
I was a kid with a dream.
Meet?
We physically met. I mean, I talked to Chris actually on the phone, because I don't think there was even text messaging then. And Luzowick, who asked Chris. I don't even know why Chris did the favor. But he said, hey, there's this kid I want you to look at. And Chris was like, all right, if I find time. And I think you were coming through for an event at the time to New York. You're like, I'll drive through Worcester. I'll take a look. You stopped at Gold's Gym. I remember the whole gym was so excited for you guys to roll through, because at the time you were featured in a lot of the muscular developments, and, you were endorsing Twin Lab, I think, at the time. And I was like, man, Chris Aceto is going to come take a look at me. And I remember you stopped in and took a look and kind of sketched up a little diet for me and said, okay, see you later. And, I think that's where it all kind of started. Remember those days?
Yeah, it was like I was going down to, actually, Jay called. I know exactly where I was in my office. That condo.
Yeah.
And I had a white phone with a giant cord on it. I thought I was high-tech because I could take the cord all the way through the...
Yeah, for the house, because it was a long cord, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my name is... Jay Cutler, sounds exactly like he does now, and same cadence talk, and said, a lot of people think I have potential for the sport. I'm not sure. I thought maybe if, I could meet with you sometime and you could give me your opinion. And he was polite and organized. I said, like, how old are you? And he said, you're 18.
18, yeah.
I said, I'm 18. And I thought, like, well, I was 25. But, so we were both technically young, and I thought, wow, that's really mature for, he's sounds like got it together, knows what he wants on the phone. And Jay knows me, I hate being bothered by anyone.
Yeah, and I was shocked that you actually took the time. Why did you do it is the question.
If you remember, because of this, I said, I wanted to get him off the phone. I didn't know how. Like now I'd say, I am too busy, goodbye to someone.
Yeah.
I don't take calls or whatever. And I said, why don't you do this? I tried to delay tactic. Call me back in a week. And he said, when? Like it was like a Tuesday. And I said, like next Tuesday. And he said, okay, what time? And I said, the J details, Matt. I said, like 7:30 p.m. And so, like, nobody had my number, and so the phone rang, like, a week later at 7:30, and I said, hello. He said, it's Jay Cutler. You told me to call you in a week at 7:30, so I wanted to see, if you could, I don't know, we could get together or something, and Luz Wick recommended, me to you, so I thought, like, wow, that's pretty impressive. It might sound trivial, but I thought it was impressive, so I said, actually... I'm going to a Luther Vandross concert. It's his
okay.
sister.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
And since it's there, I'll stop by. And
2-hour drive from
Yeah.
Maine.
Yep.
Yeah, 2-hour drive.
Well, it's 2.5, but the way you drive.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I went down, and I remember like the first impression was like width and legs.
Yeah, I had the legs then.
You had the legs and you had the width, and I thought, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anyone that wide.
At 18.
Yeah, and so we trained, and so the impression was that, oh, he must know everything that he's doing because he looks the part, and he didn't know what he was doing really in the gym. He was just a kid, so he didn't know really what he was doing. And I thought, like, if you don't know what you're doing, in the gym, and then we talked about diet and what you're doing with diet, and you look this good, then you got a lot of potential. So I wrote him a diet. When did I see you next?
I think it was a few months.
Yeah, so a few months. Did I come back down or something?
You came back down because you were going through to New York for events or something.
And I said, let me go see, touch bases with him. And I saw him, and I'm like, there's something that's good going to come out of this.
Yeah.
And then I got the train going. I said, well, Olympia, it's not hard.
Well, at the time you were helping, obviously, Laura Cravell at the time, right? She was second best in the world, which people don't even think about because women's bodybuilding has changed so much. But it was like Linda and her were like the rivals, right?
Yeah, it's like you and Ronnie.
Yeah. So, and then who else was on the roster then?
DeMayo.
Yeah. Mike Francois.
92. I prepped that year. What's his face? Dillette for the.
That's right. Dillette came and stayed with you a little bit.
But DeMayo, who was big in mass before you, and then of course Mike was like coming up, and I trained coached Cormier when I was out in California.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing is California was a big. Probably a turning point in your career. You went out for the muscle camps, which, you can talk a little bit about that. But Springfield College, educated. We talk about nutritionists in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
You graduated, first in your class, right? The background we talked about.
I was going to say that before you did this for Jay, what got you to that position where people are like, you need to talk to Chris Aceto?
Well,
because you're only 25, right?
Yes. And so I went to Springfield, and I had a nutrition background. And then I went to work before we'd have bought it, bodybuilding camp. So I was only 20. So 20, 21, 22, I worked at the bodybuilding camp. And when I worked there, it was a great time. It was like...
We'll talk a little bit about it because people don't know what it was.
Camp was... So Dave Zelon, who went on
to
become a Hollywood producer, had this idea because he loved bodybuilding. He was like a groupie and still loves bodybuilding. And his two friends, they went to the Wharton School of Business, but they love bodybuilding. They said, we're going to do they love seeing the Mr. Olympians, and they said, we're going to do a camp where people like us who just love bodybuilding can come and live with Jay Cutler's, like Lee Haney and
Rich Gaspari was there, Tom Platz, everyone.
Platz and Samir Banut and Barry DeMay. So Gary Stridham. And so I went to work when I was 20, 21, and 22 for that entity.
Was that after graduation? Was an intern?
No, it was like in the summers. I would just work there.
Okay, so it was a summer thing. Go to camp, train with these guys, learn how to eat. So they were all probably different sectors.
Yeah, so what you would have every week would be like Gaspari's week, and all the people want to be like Rich Gaspari. All the kids would come out. They would come, and then they'd have like Lee Haney week, and then people who were fans of Lee Haney would come, and they'd live at Loyola Marymount University, which is the university.
On the hill, you're right there.
Which was back then hill with nothing around there in LA.
Playa del Rey.
Yeah. Playa del Rey was quiet, sleepy nothingness. And they would stay at Loyola Marymount University, and Rich Gaspari would stay in the dorm, and I would stay in the dorm, and other people who were running the camp would stay in the dorm. Then they'd have 100 people would fork over 800. I don't know what it was.
And did they pay the bodybuilders to show up?
Yeah, they would pay the bodybuilders to spend the week there. And I remember we would talk about Matt Dufresne right before, and Jeff King right before this episode started. And I had previous to that, or around that time, I was working with Bob Gruskin. It was like the
ultimate guru.
The ultimate guru. And I learned a lot of bodybuilding prep from him, from just being around him. He really liked me, and I spent enormous amount of time with him. And
how knowledgeable was he?
Oh, God. I think, honestly, I always told Bob, everything that, I stole everything from Bob, and then everyone stole it from me. Because everything came through him. Everything that anyone does, I don't care where they say, no, someone was doing that. No, you didn't. He was doing it first. And so when I went out to California, I remember calling Matt Dufresne from like a payphone and saying, wow, guys at the pro level, like nutrition-wise, it's like way off. People winging it then, Lee Haney was winning 7 titles. I don't know. The person who had the most grounded understanding of like what we would do now when it comes to nutrition, Rich Sparry.
Why? Because he was trial and error guy, or?
He was trial and error, and he was analytical, and he was a sociopath, when it came to everything, the training, the diet. He just...
So protein, carbs, fats.
Yeah, he was, no one measured nothing, which was shocking to me. I brought my scale out, and I measured everything from like 15 years old on.
Yeah.
So people like just eating regular food, and no one measured nothing. And so when I remember going to Rich Gaspari's room, and it's like, okay, here's someone who's like me. Like he had like the scale out, was measuring everything. The pasta, he would take like one, if it wouldn't put on the
take
scale,
it off, yeah,
take one piece off and measure it, and that was just normal for him. And I told him, other people don't.
Did Gruskin teach him though? Because he was from that area,
no,
right?
They were their paths crossed.
Okay,
yeah. Gaspari's, path crossing with Bob was, and he'll tell you this, is that at one point Bob said like something like, you're wasting your time. You could be, you just got to go to you got to get super serious, because right in bodybuilding we always talk about that. There's just a different levels of seriousness.
Yeah.
And whether it be the training, the diet, and I think it's best encapsulated in what Jay says, I lived in a box, which is, I know some people get that, but unless you've lived in a box, it's just a saying, so Gaspari was the type who lived in the box.
Yeah, he was a simple,
like,
same routine every day, day in, day out.
It was Groundhog Day, and in bodybuilding, Christmas means nothing, birthdays mean nothing, relationships don't.
Saturday's not a day, Sunday's not a day. It's just
Thanksgiving. Who cares? Yeah. Just make sure the gym's open. Snowstorms, God forbid, right? Yeah. You live in Massachusetts. Yeah. It's a leg day. You can't miss.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, so you were doing these camps. You were like the nutrition guy. I mean, you were super young. All these pro bodybuilders were young at this point. I mean, that's a different. What people don't understand is today's era, like guys are competing in their 30s and 40s, which really wasn't the case. Well, I guess Albert Beckles and a couple of the other guys, right?
And Haney retired at what?
31, yeah.
31.
So you would kind of teach nutrition, meaning like what? I hate to even put these terms in front of you, macros or calories, like protein, carbs. I mean, you only taught me, like, you would literally put on a diet, it was like how much protein. It would say, okay, you're going to eat, say, 300 protein for the day. You're going to say 500 carbs, and then like you wouldn't even include fat because you just knew I wasn't going to eat any fat added whatsoever.
If you wanted to drink Sprites, I'd say eat Sprite. I don't care.
Do you believe that calories are calories versus like
no,
can't get ripped on certain?
No, I think you can get ripped on anything.
Is it calories in, calories out kind of thing?
Just came from Five Guys with Ramon, and we had 3 double burgers and a double fry. But I think, a calorie is a calorie to some degree. But I mean, there's difference between. It depends on which body it's going into, right? If you're like your metabolism's humming because you're training twice a day, calories, so to speak. That's why, like, when you were training twice a day, I'd be like, 500 carbs is 500 carbs. But if you're got a slower metabolism, don't have a lot of muscle, calories, not a calorie, no. Just like $1 is not $1. Someone once said, like, I could give you a house, I could give you my house, but there could be like so much debt on it. You don't even want to take it. $1 is not $1.
Yeah.
I could give you $1, or, I could give you that $1, but I owe my son $5 of that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
He comes to you, he wants the $5.
I know, but how hard is it to navigate with today's world, especially and over the years with, like, people have this mindset because they're taught a certain manner, and you're kind of, I don't know, you weren't really as like, okay, you're going to do what you're going to do, but you kind of give, this is my blueprint, follow it or nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really interject in a sense. You know what I mean? And you weren't a cardio guy.
No.
You hated cardiovascular. And is that what Bob taught you, is like the training aspect, and the calorie deficit is really what's going to get someone lean?
Yeah, I still think that when it comes, I mean, we know people who do tons of cardio and the show comes around and they're not in shape, right?
Yeah.
And they could have starved. That will work.
You feel still the same way?
Yeah, I think, the true deficit is the hammer.
Because I remember starving on my diet.
Yeah, people always, my diets are hard sometimes.
I remember you being like, no, 12 egg whites before you go to bed, no carbs. And, and then, of course, it later, I mean, that could switch around. I mean, I could be eating 1,000 grams of carbs. I tell people I died on 1,000 grams of carbs because, you just be like, I remember you telling me in a diet, like, you're done. I'm like, well, Chris, it's 8 weeks out. And you're like, well, you're done. You're just like, now you're just letting the body just roll with it.
Yeah. Actually, it'd be, to correct Jay, when Jay was doing 1,000 carbs a day, he would lie to people because he didn't want to take he didn't have the mental capacity to explain to them, when people would say, like, you're getting ripped. What are you doing? And he'd be like, 1,000 carbs. And then, like, you can't be doing 1,000 carbs. So then he would just say, like, oh, I'm doing 250.
Yeah.
So to be able to, so that he didn't have to go through all the steps of, like, why.
It was too much of an explanation,
Yeah.
But I mean, we've come a long way since, I mean, back then, I mean, I talk about all the time when I would have to mail you pictures when I moved to California, but I was driving to Maine week after week. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because your eye was always the judge on, and I need to see you. And I think you're pretty adamant about, like, hey, I adjust the diet every week, which now I think you adjust diets on a daily basis. I mean, I don't know if anyone goes that deep and make any adjustments. Like, I remember towards, like, the last
details, but not detailed.
But you didn't, what are we going to do tomorrow? You're like, I don't know. I'll figure it out when I wake up.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy to have that kind of eye. But I was driving to Maine 2 hours. I mean, talk about that. I would literally pose and turn around and drive 2 hours back.
My door at 7:30, so for a 2.5 hour drive. So
I'd get up at like 4 in the morning.
Yeah. And it was right on the beach, and I'd be like, Jay, why don't you hang out? I was like, okay, I'm leaving.
And
it's cooler, pose, eat one meal,
and drive back 2 hours up. It was always on my day off too.
How fast did you progress from that 18, 20?
Everything was straight up. It was like the NVIDIA stock.
Yeah.
It was always like, that AR.
Yeah.
Walk.
Yeah, walk.
He was just growing like nonstop.
And the diet was, don't you think the diet was a key? Because I was broke. I mean, and by the way, like, this, what floored me most in the beginning was, like, it wasn't like, hey, what can I pay you? Because there was nothing to pay. I just didn't have any money at all. Yeah, I mean.
When I first met Jay, he lived in the basement of a farm.
Yeah, my brother's house.
And when I pulled up, I thought I had this, what was that name of that car I had?
You had, like, it was like a green.
It was green with I thought it was like a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
And the only new car I ever bought besides that was,
and it got flooded, that car.
Yeah. CJ the memory. It got flooded. The 98 Olympia got flooded. I couldn't go down to the Olympia. Maine got cut off from the world.
Remember
the rainstorm, and the ocean came right up and swallowed it up. So
it had like a
Bostonian.
Yeah, it was Boston, but it had like a canvas roof on it, right?
Yeah, special.
Sounds like a old pimp car.
No, it was like your piece of shit Cadillac.
Yeah, take it easy. That was
so.
So the aunt talk about the ducks and everything surrounding the car.
So I drive that car up.
My driveway was like a quarter mile long. Remember how dirt road, and you probably were driving down there like, damn, am I going to be able to pull out of here?
Yeah, there was no Google. He gave me the instructions.
No, you were using the what was it, maps, or there was no phones or anything. So you just take a left, right.
Take a left and you'll see a tree, and take a right and you'll see a big red farmhouse. So I pull up to the farmhouse, and like were they ducks or geese?
They were guinea hens, I think.
These things are mean.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
They'll attack you.
Like 300 of them. They covered the car. I couldn't see out. I couldn't even see out. And Jay came out with the width, the big legs, and the spandex.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I didn't feel bad for you because I knew
Ed Connors felt bad for me. He goes, I got to get him out of here. Ed Connors came to that house.
Really?
Yes, and he said, "Oh my God, I got to get Jay out of this house."
Wait,
Go back to the geese.
Yeah.
So the geese. So I'm like, I had to wait until he came and I don't know if he opened up the
garage. They opened up the cellar door. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got out of the car, and he said, come into the apartment. In the apartment, you had to go down into the basement. It had no windows. Did that have a window?
No, I had windows, but it was like totally dark. Yeah, it was a duplex.
And all the geese tried to come into the into the apartment. Jay had to like kick them out. There were like 300 of them. They were all trying to come down.
Yeah, till the fox got them all,
And then you had. I remember you had like 500 eggs there.
Yeah.
Because he was eating off the farm, I guess.
Yeah. My dad was picking all the eggs and everything.
And I looked around, and it was, it was what it was. And I realized, this is where he is at this point. And I knew 1,000%. I said, he's going to make it in bodybuilding. He's going to get out of this
dumb
shithole.
No, but but
Chris, he loved it because it was comfortable. It was,
Yeah.
you could train, you got food and
eat, sleep, train.
Well, eventually, like, my dad got remarried and we got kicked out, and we actually moved to Worcester, and that's where you used to come and stay. You stay overnight sometimes, and we would train together. At the time, people don't know, you and I were like the same size.
Yeah.
I mean, me at 21, you were 245. We were on the same weight, I think. And obviously you were still competing. I think, what was the last year you did the Nationals? You remember what year that
95.
was? Yeah. So, I mean, at 21, I was well on my way. We would train together, and then
it was a big upgrade to Eustis Street.
Yeah. And, I'd come out there, I was still training. I was starting to drive out to Billerica and Framingham.
Yeah.
And I remember, specifically getting ready for the Tournament of Champions in 95. And if you remember, we all flew out to California. And I remember when I started that diet, I was like high 260s, 70. And I'm like, what am I going to be, Chris? And he's like, you're going to be 225.
Yeah.
And we went through that diet, and I was 241 when I ended up on that stage in California. I mean, and you were there. I mean, it was like, I remember just showing up there, no Protan. Remember how white I was? And we were trying to search for Protan. Now today, of course, they have all the spray tan, everything else. And
why didn't we have Protan?
Because we just didn't. We thought, oh, screw it, we'll get it when we get it there. You didn't even that's what I mean. Like, we were just winging it. Yes. And you had no idea what I was going to look like. And I remember the first time I ever dropped that weight, and I woke up shredded, and I made an impact. Obviously met Joe Weider that week.
Yeah,
and
we saw Wheeler at the dinner that night, and Wheeler came over and said, a career.
Yeah.
Incredible career.
I mean, we kind of knew at that point. And I mean, but I remember you telling me, you're like, listen, I'm never going to, you'll pay me when you make it. When you said, I know, like, when you start winning and you start making money is when you can pay me. That's where it was kind of like the unspoken rule. No. We never talked about monetary anything.
No, because you know what? What's so funny, Jay, is, I can honestly say that money has never entered my mind with bodybuilding. It's always been about, like, being your best, whether it be you or someone else. It's not about money. People have won money. I'm like, oh, like, I find out, like, oh, and I won this. I'm like, wow, you did? Like, yeah, you didn't know? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
He said, "You want me to pay you extra?" I said, "No,
Yeah, you know,
not interested in being paid extra."
it's crazy because at the time you had to separate. I mean, you were, like you said, you were training the DeMeos, Mike Francois. I mean, you were looking at, like, Francois came on the scene. I mean, he won the Arnold Classic.
DeMeo and Francois all in one weekend, right?
I don't know if we did or not.
You sat in the corner.
I did. I was there when they were, yeah. I know I sat when DeMeo posed for you one time when he came up. And that's when he moved back to Mass after being in California. But, you know, I was just always floored that you could look at me as like a teenager and like a young guy coming up when you're like training the Mike Francois to win the Arnold Classic in 95.
Yeah.
Obviously DeMeo, you know, he won the Nationals, I think, that year. I think, yeah. So I was like, how do you decipher looking at someone at that level versus, you know, someone like myself? I mean,
you have to see what can be.
Yeah. I think, you know, that's what the crazy eye is. And you can always, like, what's the determination? Like, you never care about, I mean, you obviously watch the skill, but how do you look at a body and know, okay, if the guy's holding water, he's holding fat? I mean, is it just something with the eye that...
I think it's something, you know, I think like anything, once you know, like the supplement business, you know, you're in, you know, you go into it not knowing, but once you're into it for so long, you know, someone say, "Hey, Jay, I'm starting a supplement business." You could tell them 35 mistakes that they're going to make in the first 2 years. They might not listen if you give them that advice, but you know from experience, you know, whether it be, I mean, I don't even know what the issues and snafus could be, but you probably made lots of mistakes where you correct yourself and say like, "Oh, that's not going to happen next time."
But do you take are you one of these guys that can take a diet that like, well, I don't eat fish and I don't like, can you, or do you just,
on that?
Yeah,
I think you can work with people.
Like I don't agree with anyone that's like, I think whitefish gets you leaner than like steak or chicken. And then you look at Ronnie Coleman, who never had whitefish. I mean, how do you explain something like that?
Oh, he did 2 hours of cardio a day.
True.
On an incline like that. Remember I told you?
Yeah, tell the story.
It was 90.
It was 90.
Yeah,
Miss Olympia. 98.
Yeah,
because they had the Miss Olympia split that year.
Yeah, the Olympia was a week out, and Coleman was.
It was 3 weeks from the Olympia.
Okay, 3 weeks. See,
yeah, I knew.
No one has that mind recall.
Yeah, it was the women's Olympia in New York. It was a week, 3 weeks prior.
Okay, and so backstage, because Coleman had to do his girlfriend was in the Miss Olympia, and backstage they had a treadmill, and I am shitting you not, Coleman had on tights, and he had on tights, a hoodie, and high top Ottoman
sneakers, yeah.
And it's not exaggeration. I called Jay. I wonder how I called you.
You called me from a phone, but it was actually you were he was in the hotel, I think.
No, it was
so the hotel had a glass like a workout room, and you said, "Coleman, I just saw him in the
incline was like straight up."
Yeah.
And he was taking these gargantuan, like crazy. He's got long legs anyway, his long steps, and he was drenched. And his heart rate had to be at probably 170 or something, or 150 and the intensity that he was doing the cardio, and his legs just looked nuts. Everything looked nuts. And he was doing it straight up, and I'm like, no one's going to beat that. I called Jay, and I said,
this was 98.
Yeah, 98.
And because I had just lost him at the NOC in May. That was my first pro show. Yeah. I missed the qualification. And he called me and he said, "Dude, this guy's like next level."
Yeah, I wonder if Ronnie knows it. I was with Milos in 95. Not with Milos. I went out to eat with Milos when I first met him in 95 at the Montreal Pro. I went up to Montreal Pro for, guess who I went up with? If you get this right, dude, your brain is just, you need to be shot. Who was the amateur I was hitting?
The kid with the horse meat.
Yes.
Trying to think what that kid's name was.
He was really good. He was 21 too.
Yeah. He came and stayed with me, that kid. What was his name?
He was a wonderful kid. He drove a car down for me all the way to Florida to my boat. I needed my car. He was so dependable. I said, I called him up. I said, "Can you drive my car down to Florida?" He said, yeah. I had him go pick it up, and he drove it down, and he flew back. Remy Zuri.
Yeah, Remy Zuri, yeah.
Remy was in the, amateur division or something. He was a great bodybuilder. And
he was in Muscle Mag and all that too, yeah.
And Bruce Patterson.
Yeah.
Used to coach him. That's like a pre-Reagan, right?
Yeah. He was he was from Halifax, I think, or something.
And He came to stay with me.
Yeah.
Tom Prince came to stay
Yeah,
with me.
that's right. Yeah.
So I saw Coleman at the 95
Montreal.
Montreal, and Wheeler was in it too. Wheeler was Wheeler.
Yeah.
Coleman was just like the Texas guy with the big arms. And Wheeler, and Ronnie dusted him. And that was 95. And I remember he posed to Barbra Streisand like a slow song, and he just, his hamstrings and his back double was just so off the hook. And after he was signing autographs, and I'm not like it's just not me. But I went up to him and I said, his arms was so
He had
huge.
crazy peak biceps,
Crazy.
split
And he was signing
biceps. Yeah.
autographs, and I said, you're going to be Mr. Olympia.
And what do you say?
He just laughed and said, oh, you think so? And that was it. I don't know,
And that was 95.
95, 3 years before. But that, if you go back and look at how peeled out of his mind he was at the 95 Montreal Pro.
And what did he place?
First.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he beat Wheeler like...
And if I remember right, it's still natural then.
No, he
No.
wasn't. No.
Was it?
This was
He
beyond it.
just talked about it the other day.
No, but he hadn't figured out the form. He hadn't figured out the formula. He hadn't linked up with Chad yet. And remember, in Chad, it was first time was the Night of Champions in '98, I think, when he actually linked up, and that's when he started. He beat Kevin that show. Kevin was second.
Yeah, and Kevin was big for that show.
And, obviously we have a lot. I mean, nationals, you went to there. We saw the potential. I was always kind of shit on, don't you think? Like, I lost the overall at the nationals. It was kind of, we kind of knew.
Yeah.
We kind of knew, but
We always dust it off like this, like whatever. Because you know what? We dust it off because I don't know about how you think about it or feel about it, but in my mind, I was already driving that caboose like you winning the Olympia. That was like a in my mind like a given.
because you hadn't had anyone that had. I mean, Mike obviously got sick.
Yeah,
Paul just went off the rockers, some, and then it's like, and I don't think you were like. I feel like a lot of times, like I'm building, like people get excited about building the next champion. I don't know if that was the case with you. You would just kind of, hey, let's just take it as it comes. And I know this kid's going to be good, but like, it was like a marathon. You never really were trying to sprint me there.
yes,
Because the talent pool was deep. Let's be real. Talk about like some of these guys, like the Wheeler, when we see him in the airport in like the tight shirt and
looked like a cartoon.
it was so insane, right? Paul Dillette, I mean,
Cartoon character. He stayed with me. He stayed 6 weeks before the North Americas. I think he stayed for like 5, 4.5, and he was a cartoon.
and the training. They talk about the intensity of training. I mean, some of these guys, they didn't have to train like you've seen the hardest trainers and you've seen the easiest trainers. Some guys just have to go through the motions.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were training these guys in the gym, and I mean, you taught me a lot about training. That's what people don't realize is like they think of you as a nutrition guy.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy does my diet, but we talked a lot about the training and hey, don't do this. Hey, are you doing this movement? I mean, is that your background too? I mean, what's part of your science?
I mean, my degree is applied exercise science. It's exercise physiology and nutrition. So, I mean, now, like, I don't get too involved with people's I don't have the time, and I make this assumption that people are training hard. Sometimes I find out, now with YouTube, I'm like, God, that's it training? No wonder why they're only mostly good and not like,
So you don't ask someone when you like, hey, you just kind of
I
deal
try
with
to
it?
find out what this split is and like how,
Do you think there's an ultimate split?
I've always liked 2 on 1 off.
Yeah, I think after 2 days.
Because I don't think if you really know how to push your body, I mean, you're broken after 2 days.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
And you need this.
You believe in volume.
I believe in volume. I believe in heavy. I don't believe in like, I like volume, like if you added up the sets, but I don't like volume. I don't like the volume where you do in high rep. I don't like high rep.
Like what's high reps in your eyes?
More than 15.
Yeah.
And that comes from, weight training is an anaerobic exercise. If you look at the physiques of sprinters, if you look at the physique of sprinters, they have a different physique than a miler and a different physique than a person who runs a 440, because that all-out effort, involves type of muscle fibers that respond to muscle growth.
Mm-hmm.
So a sprint, let's say at Olympian, it takes 10 seconds. How long does it take to do a set? 10 seconds, a set of 10 or something? If I say, Jay, do a set of bench press and I only want it to last 10 seconds, well, you're only going to do 10 reps. It's like akin to that sprinter, where if I say, do 60 reps, it's more akin to like a middle distance runner. Well, that develops a whole different looking, less rugged physique than, the shorter rep range. So, I think that the really high reps too might feel like something, but someone just told me today, who's getting ready for the show, I feel terrible. And I said, who cares? You look incredible. The feel, might feel like it's doing 30 reps, but
I've always kind of said that.
Resulting.
I always say 8 to 12 reps, and they say, why? They ask me a lot about that. Why never no heavy-duty training? Because everyone was on the Dorian kick back in that era, like, I need to train one set to failure. But I said, man, it's the way Chris kind of taught me, or I was kind of around. And, I mean, you worked around the most experienced people. Would you say that most of the guys trained in that aspect?
Yeah, I think so. And, get back, if you do like 10 reps, you're causing muscle fiber damage. That creates a calorie need. The damage requires to rebuild it calories. When you do like 60 reps, let's say, I'm just trying to make that's kind of absurd, but some people do 40 rep sets, 60 reps. When you do let's say 60 reps, you just burn what you burned, like the calories that are burnt away doing the exercise. There's no added dividend, so to speak, or extra calorie required to pay back anything, because there's no real damage to the 2B fibers, which are the ones that are involved in muscle growth.
So your 30 rep bench presses are
to whack.
Yes.
They make you,
But people still grow no matter what, depending on the genetics.
Some people, and that's part of it, is because people say, well, I saw so-and-so. I said, well, it's genetics. I know people can eat hamburgers and cheesecake and get ripped. That's their metabolism genetics. Doesn't mean that it's ideal. And that's how, I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in on the training, is people say like, oh, I hear that all the time. So-and-so does this for like hamstrings. Look at his hams. I said, dude, he's, so-and-so's got strided glutes off season and he's retired. So, his lunges didn't do that.
I mean, I was serious from the very beginning. I mean, we remember the home gym I built out in Spencer.
Oh, the bomb.
I mean, before everyone even talked about gyms, I mean, all that great equipment we had out there.
Yeah.
I would lock myself in and train like that. And then
Jay lived above the gym.
Yeah.
I just told someone that the other day. He lived
in the gym. Yeah.
He lived above the gym. He had the apartment above the gym. So the commute was like 14, he probably knows how many steps. How many steps was it down from your kitchen down to...
Well, it was a spiral staircase, remember?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I was living in the gym, it was like a whole 2,000 square foot home base. And I mean, I would just train, and I mean, a whole life was dedicated to bodybuilding at that point. Yeah.
It's one of your best quotes ever, Jay. You have hundreds of good...
Yeah. But, I mean, 99 Olympia, talk about that.
99 Olympia.
Talk about...
So
the preparation. 98 was a disappointment. I didn't qualify. So
yeah. So 99,
99 we win. We get third at the Ironman, fourth at the Arnold, qualify, right?
Yeah. So, and then you essentially go into like the rebound of the ages. So we get to 99, and here's me. I'm like, well, it's 99.
First year in Vegas, by the way.
First year in Vegas, we go. Did we look at houses?
Yeah, we went and looked at property when Tropicana ended.
Let's go look at houses, Jay.
Yeah.
Every single one I go in, I say, buy this one, Jay, right? Every single one is 300 square feet, $380,000, right? And so 99 comes, and that's me. I start with the, you're going to win it. People would probably be like want to kill me if they hear me say that to Jay. You're going to win. I mean, you can win this year. He looked nuts. I mean, the Christmas tree was just like stunning.
You came to California with me for the photo shoots.
Yes.
And you stayed at the Residence Inn.
I stayed a long time. And so Coleman's Mr. Olympia. And I told Jay, you like, did I say you can win?
You just said, you're gonna stand with these guys, yeah.
And who's the big photographer who used to get paid?
Chris Lund.
Chris Lund. What did he get paid a year by Weeder?
I don't know what it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Was that?
Yeah, because we were surprised.
Do you remember when Leverone saw me?
Yes, I'm going to get to that.
Okay, yeah.
So Chris Lund shoots him, and Chris Lund said, it's between you and Ronnie. I've shot everyone in the lineup. This is like within 2 weeks out from the show. It's just you and Ronnie. And so we see Leverone in the gym, and Leverone, right? He came up to Jay, and Kevin Leverone's Kevin Leverone at that time. He's at the peak of his career, and he came up to Jay and shook his head.
Yeah,
I disbelieve.
Yeah, that's the face he had.
What have you been doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he said, "What have you been doing?" Well, what did you say to him? Training?
Yeah. I'm a kid. I don't know what to say. This is my idol.
Yeah. And he might have said something like implied, like, you're going to beat us all. I mean, he essentially said, you're going to beat me. And so getting ready for the show. And when Jay came out, I was like, I don't know if it's like 20 row. I'm like, wow, looks way better on stage than I even thought he'd look. And like turn from behind, like the hamstrings, glutes, and Christmas tree the Christmas tree was just triple another level. And everyone lines up and the call outs is like, Jason on the first call, Jason on the second call, got second to last. And that was the only time that Jay
I was devastated, man.
Was in doubt.
We sat in that room, Kerry, myself, and you.
You sat in your posing trunks after prejudging, sunk in the chair, and you asked, am I good enough for this? And I said, you can beat all these guys, right? I said, there's no way, you can beat all these guys. I don't know what else I said, but...
You asked Kerry, does he suck? Like, you were, like, asking her, like, and she's like, I don't understand, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And is there a reason now, many years later, just overlooked?
How?
If you look at the video, I mean,
historical overlook.
I was, could have been one of my best condition of all time, really.
Gigantic.
Just didn't have the
weight too.
The maturity. Yeah. I mean, I was like,
the weight was
60 or so.
Yeah, it was way up there. I mean, I remember you on the cover after that, and people were like, God, how do you end up second?
I mean, you remember the posing in the Battlefield Olympia with the headband and all that stuff? Yeah. I mean, we sat in that room and we kind of second-guessed everything. I was moving to California at the time.
How many potatoes did you have?
Oh, my gosh, sweet potatoes. Remember I think we had a picture of it, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
He had me carving up on sweets. And then, so we were devastated. I went back to Mass. I moved to California around Thanksgiving that year. And I remember you implying, and I give a lot of credit to, Joe Weeder. I had a lot of mentorship when it comes to business. I had Bruce around me at the time, but you taught me early about the mail order. I was doing like the shirts and the pictures and all that because you had a very successful mail order. You were doing books and everything else. And I remember you said, Jay, get to
at that.
Yeah, you had your own camps. Yeah. So I come to California, like, you're only renting an apartment for 6 months. I signed a 6-month lease in Aliso Viejo, and you're buying a place. And I'm like, okay. And I remember we went to Night of Champions. I don't know what we did. We just revised everything. I said, I'm going to come in shredded. Came to NOC that year. Dillette said he was going to win. Remember, he was my neighbor. I was getting up in the morning.
I forgot about that.
I was getting up in the morning and like going and doing fasted cardio. And I would go to the gym and train, and then I would come back. And as I was coming back from my first training session cardio, and Dillette was just pulling out to drive to Gold's Gym Venice.
To train with Charles.
Charles, yes. To drive all the way from Venice from Aliso. This is an hour, like a 45-minute ride. But Dillette would just be leaving, and I was already 2 sessions in of training because Chris had me on 2 cardio sessions and 2 weight training sessions. I was training double splits. which I don't know if people do nowadays. Why don't people do double split training? Do you believe in it? Do you not believe in it?
I'd rather see someone train twice a day than do cardio twice a day.
But I was doing both.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to more.
Yeah.
This is where you're like, okay, Jay, just do what you do. I'll adjust the diet around it. Why'd you let me do that?
Because I know you have to learn for yourself, and I wouldn't let other people learn for themselves because they can't. In other words, they're not reflective enough. But I knew Jay would be able to take that and learn, I don't mean to belittle other people, but Jay, I think you're next level in terms of awareness.
Yeah.
And to be able to make corrections. So Jay did call me at some point there and say, like, I'd already been to the gym, done my cardio, and let's just leave it. And I remember you quoted, exact quote is, there's no way this guy's going to beat me at this show. There's no way he's not going to.
Well, he told me at the firehouse, he's like, I know you're getting ready, but you're not going to win. And that was kind of like, I was just determined. And, and Lee Priest was in that show, and I think Marcus Rule and everybody.
I remember going to that show in New York.
It was still when it was at,
and if you remember, Beacon Theater.
Beacon Theater, yeah.
And we went, and there was how many guys in the show? 50, 40, 50?
It was the biggest show there was.
And I had this horrible feeling. I never had the feeling, but during the show, as it started, reflect back to the 99 Olympia, because at 99 Olympia, I'm like, Jay, man, you off the hook.
Yeah.
And at the New York Pro Night of Champions, she was off the hook. And they made the call-outs without Jay. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they had so many people on the stage. You used to have to put this platform where 20 people stand in the first, 20, so you can't even see the people. It's like chorus, when choruses sing.
The stage wasn't very big.
And they go they called 7, and the prejudging started, and I think they asked for a front delt bicep, and they go, oh, and Jay Cutler. And then they few poses, they go, Jay back in line. Yeah. That was it. I'm like, well, what's that mean? They forgot him, and now they put him back because he didn't deserve to be there? Are they blind? Like this 99 thing came flashing back, and then I realized people Jay just dusted the show. I'm like, really? One call out, that was it. They just put you back, and the show was over.
Yeah, that was a big confidence. My first professional win. I won $15,000. Bought my first condo. I remember I was so excited to tell you I paid $218 for it. My payment was $1,200 a month, and that was kind of the start.
Would you like to buy one of those for $218 now?
Yeah, it was $1 million.
It's $1 million.
Jay brought me toured me around Aliso Viejo, which was just getting going.
Just getting started. Yeah.
Jay said it's built on an ant farm.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, what's that? He said, the foundation in the whole school is not that good.
Yeah.
And it was just getting going, and they were building the town center.
Yeah.
The yogurt place.
Yeah.
We went to eat at, we used to go to, but that was you moved out to
that was the start of it all. Went to Olympia, placed 8th, which I was just burnt out. I was a little fried, but we went on the tour. So this is where it all starts, and this is where I want you to chime in, because this is the catalyst of this whole interview. Is 2000 tour, leading into 2001, which
I was sick on the tour. You remember?
What is the best look? Is it the 2009 look, or is it 2001? It was my best, yeah.
I mean, you had all kinds of, the
crazy looks, yeah.
You had Arnold looks that were astounding. The Iron Man look, and people say it's the lighting. No, it wasn't the lighting, because I was there.
Yeah.
You were 273. I remember you posing in underwear at 273, and I'm like...
And you're like, please don't tell people your weight.
Yeah.
Even then, right?
Because they'll say you're off.
Yeah.
But the tour, so the tour, we go on the tour.
You came with me. I asked you to come, and crazy, because at the time you didn't have any children.
Yeah.
And you were just you were just...
Come? Why not?
Yeah.
And so we go on the tour, and you were in phenomenal condition. And
how though? We just crashed down after Olympia 8th place.
Yeah. Because you just crashed and just brought in a tighter physique, and it was so we get there to the shows, and Jay gets second to Coleman. If you remember, in England, I invited a couple friends from England, and so Jay gets second to Coleman, and he was like Jay was lights out condition at that show. And my two friends come backstage, and Jay was kind of, were you disappointed, I think? Because I probably told you were going to win.
Nah, I mean, but I wanted to win, of course, but I was second to Coleman.
And we have my two friends from England, and one guy says, "Oh, Jay, it's my first bodybuilding contest. You should have won." And Jay explains to him that, no, there's a lot more facets to it than condition. And, this is Mr. Olympia. And the guy says, "No, you should have won." And he said, "Well, you don't really, it's your first contest. You probably don't have the eye for it." And he said, "Did you tell Jay what I do for a job?"
Yeah.
And I said, he's a eye surgeon. and he teaches at, I forget, University of Manchester, other students how to become eye doctors. And he said, when it comes to eyes, I might not, so I kind of think I'm like on the upper echelon. So we went to Italy after that, and I had a disposable camera.
Yeah.
And I said, Jay, Coleman was backstage, and I said, "Can you take this picture, Jay, with Ronnie? Can you take it with Jay?" And he said, "Sure." And Jay said, "Why'd you take that picture?" And I said, "Because you can put it in your scrapbook."
He exactly said this. Listen to this.
Because that's the last time Coleman beats you.
What year is this?
2000.
Yeah, the tour.
And Jay, Jay's switch. Full off year, I'm going to the 01 Olympia. I'm going to win it. And you got ready for that Olympia.
And I was eating In-N-Out Burger every single night. You were like, "Listen, you're going to have to junk it up because I was training so hard, twice a day in the off season, everything, right?"
Yeah. And so we were running into the Olympia, and I remember Jay, when people would be like, "Jay, where are you going to place it?" He just deadpanned first. I remember Lonnie Teeper saying to, "Where are you going to place? Are you're going to do well or something?" And Jay just made the declarative statement, "I'm winning." And there was intention behind it, and firmness behind it, and belief. So when that prejudging started, it was like the only person who was not surprised at that prejudging was you and me.
Yeah.
Because you were going to win it, and that's what you prepared the whole entire year for, to win that show. And that just, of course, that was the first year that it was a 2-day show. And if you look back at I always say, people are like, "Well, Jay beat Coleman in 06. They try to put an asterisk next to it. Coleman was starting to get older." I'm like, "He beat him in 01. They're like, "No, he didn't." I said, "The prejudge, and he won by 5 points.
Yeah, 6, actually.
When you go to a 6. When you go to a bodybuilding show and you win the prejudging by 6 points, actually, Jay was immediately after prejudging going into this, how can I not win? He was going into the, okay, there's the posing routine. If I lose, he was already calculating it. If I lost the posing routine, and
What was the explanation?
What was the explanation? I mean,
I
don't know. You were there, and I mean, today we watch it on social media, and people have their opinions. But when you're there in person, it was. I mean, listen, Ronnie wasn't Ronnie. He wasn't his best, right? He was definitely.
he was, he
was pretty good, yeah.
But you just had a level of
Crazy condition,
dryness and condition that was just. The audience was astounded when you came out. You looked like you were going to tip over because of the wide shoulders and the small waist. You look like you were going to tip over.
Well, if you remember, you
might not have enough.
You came to California a week out, and you remember we ate.
I took Jay 1 week out to an all-you-can-eat sushi buffet.
Yeah.
And I had him eat until
he said, "Please, just till you
explode."
He said,
"And we had ice cream."
Yeah, we had everything.
A week out of the show, and you got crazy full.
was going to say, what made you do that a week out?
Because he was so lean that I said, "Jay, you know what? You might wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm flat as a pancake. How do I get flat as a pancake from?"
You need a reserve. So he said, when I pull this down, we pull a little water, we wanted to make sure we landed this thing, and just, he knew the overwhelming size. He knew from the judgment he had to get
number of sushi pieces he ate. I know the number.
I don't remember.
I think it was 163.
Really?
Because
You were a slide.
wait, I was eating too.
It was 290.
He had to pull over. He thought he was going to throw up.
Yeah. So, explain your emotions, though. Explain your emotions when.
That side though.
Uh,
Right in the middle.
explain the emotions when I come off the stage and you're crying. Because listen, a lot of things were going on in your life. Like you were, people didn't.
I was
you were
sick in 2000.
and you didn't tell me.
Yes. In 2000,
And I wanted you to explain this a little bit. So,
in 2000, we went on the tour. So I was sick for like a year. And on the tour, if you remember, I was drenched out of my mind. Like, gosh, like soaking wet. Not as much as Coleman when he was doing the treadmill at that incline. And I'd go to the doctor and I'd like, I need help. And they do blood work and they say, seem okay. I'm like, I'm not okay. Something is up. And then that whole year was just horrible. I'd be okay for 3 weeks, then 6 weeks, and then I'd feel bad for 3 days. Not bad like, I feel it, but like, God, this feels like I'm going to die. So 2000, what were we talking about, 2001?
it was 2000.
Yeah.
2001.
2001, I get married, and like, let's see, when was the Olympia?
It was October, I think, that year.
Was it October?
September.
So I get married in June, July, August. Yeah, in like August, my wife said, "Oh, you got what's that on your back?" I'm like, "What?" I can't see it.
Yeah.
Bleeding back there, and it was a mole.
Yeah.
So I like mole. I heard like moles are dangerous. I have not like moles are dangerous. You hear like a grandfather had a mole, and it was So I get in my car and I drive out to the doctor's like late at night. Like I got them. Like, oh, we can't take us. I got a mole, and they say, oh, we'll take you. And so I go to the doctor, and they go, they cut it off, and they said, this is like melanoma. Well, I didn't know. There was no Google.
Yeah.
It's like melanoma. It doesn't sound like too much. It's like clogged toilet. It sounds benign. And so it's like they go like, you gotta go see someone tomorrow. And so I go see someone, and like, it's almost like this surreal, like when you go in. The only thing I can equate it with is if somebody came in here and like started arresting me, put my arms behind my back. I'm like, what am I getting arrested for? Like, what are you talking about? I'm getting arrested. I don't have a driving ticket.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you got, charges of what? I'm like, from who? There's no information. So I go see this guy the next day, and he's like, oh, you got the gorilla in the room or something. I remember him saying like gorilla in the room. And he mentioned like not being able to survive it. And I just got up and left. Like,
well, they said it's staged.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know if they had staged it at that point, but then I went and I had like an operation, and I don't know the timeline. They said like it's stage 3, and I'm like, well, what's that mean? Guess what I thought? 10 stages can't be bad. I didn't know there were 4 stages.
Yeah.
4, it's like you're dead. 3 is you likely be dead. So I was thinking like, at that time, like, I mean, my relationship with you, how old are you at that time?
25, 6, yeah.
I mean, it's like 26, and you're like, I mean, you had like, that's 8 years I've been with, like, hanging out with Jay, and like, oh God, here he's going to win the Olympia. And
he never says one thing.
I'm going to be dead. I won't make it to next year for the, to win.
Yeah, because they literally told you, like, your chance of survival is X, right?
Yeah, so I was wearing something at that show, like a blood something.
Yeah, but you didn't. You weren't. It wasn't
like
even
drain something at that show. So like I was waiting for you to come out.
He was in tears.
Yeah, I was
in tears. Like I came from backstage, and I'm like, "Yo, what's up?" And he's like, you fucking won.
Yeah,
You just won the
You
Olympia.
won the Olympia. That's how I.
He couldn't even speak. You know, he was like,
That's how I knew it was important to me.
yeah,
You know, I mean, now bodybuilding titles are like not a dime a dozen, but it's like, okay, you could lose it next year too. But that one, I mean, it was like such a long history, and
ever since then, though, if you remember, you never stayed for another Olympia
yeah,
final.
yeah. I was.
You remember?
I ran back. If you remember,
People don't know that. Like, you'd only come.
I
to
said
the
it was
prejudge.
fixed before Trump said it was fixed
Yeah.
because I ran backstage when you lost. I was backstage and like I had lost my mind because I had nothing at that point. I was thinking like, well, I probably thought subliminally like, I mean, I wasn't thinking like I'll be dead next year, but I had nothing to lose. So when like people like I've said this effing show's fixed to everyone,
I went to Joe. Yeah, I went to.
including like the top brass. I mean, that's how I felt because I thought like I went to prejudging, and the night show was a formality,
Yes.
posing routine,
Yeah.
and then the top six. So how do you go from? We didn't know the scores at that point.
Mhm.
But how do you go from being ahead 6 to down?
Well, somehow we knew that I was ahead, though. It was all over. Like, it's kind of what? Like,
Did we know?
yes, we knew I was ahead by 6 points. Like, Jay's going to win this thing.
Okay. Well, that allowed me then. That knowledge allowed me to use the F word, which was not
Yeah.
the vulgar F word, but fix. It's rigged.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was 2000. It was like a roller coaster. 2000 to like, for me, 01. Yeah, after that, I never wanted to go to like finals. So like, just, I'll go to the like prejudge and I'd fly back.
Yeah, well, you came to Columbus. We went to
Yeah.
O2. We dominated that show.
Yeah,
that was
O2.
probably one of the best looks ever.
It
I mean,
was-
01 just rolled right to
What
O2.
was the year when you drank the Diet Mountain Dew?
That was that year.
But
I just did anything. I mean, Lorimer calls me and says, "Hey, we want you in the show." I called Chris. I was on the way to San Diego Zoo,
yeah,
and I'm like, "Hey, Chris, he just wants me into the show." And Chris is like, "Why not?" You know.
yeah. And you, that was like, you were still off the, it's bizarre. You were still riding the 99 Arnold, the 99 Ironman rebound. Like you were
Yeah.
still getting bigger by
Yeah.
So you were just eating like crazy going into, growing like crazy going into that Arnold.
I was 273.
Yeah,
at that
273. And
point. Cormier was second.
yeah. And I remember staying at the Doubletree or something.
Yeah.
Did we have the same room or something?
We shared adjoining rooms or something. Yeah.
And I remember like you told me the weight, and I just like
We were scared.
I was a little scared, and I said, "Well, let me see your Christmas tree," and it was like, I'm like, okay, it is what it is. You're 273.
Yeah.
Just don't tell anyone
Yeah.
because they'll say you're off. You're off.
Even now, when you hear a guy, he's over 300, it's like,
Yeah. So that was, we won the Arnold that year.
what do you feel about
Yeah.
the O2 Olympia, him not doing it? Was that a mistake?
I don't.
They are down. What do you think about the O2?
Or he didn't do the Olympia?
Yeah. I mean, he probably would have won, but, things happen for a reason. I believe that. And, you can't have regrets
Of course.
in sports or life. You can't have, you shouldn't fear what's going to happen in the future or regret what happened in the past. And, it was a decision that Jay made. And of course, when Jay told me I'm not doing it, I'm like, well, you're not doing it. I mean, I support you, 1,000%. Like if, in other words, you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. You got your reasons not to do it. And, you're your own person. Out of anyone in bodybuilding, the person who's been his own person all the way through is Jay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, listen, a lot of years. I mean, we went 03. That was the year that I was supposed to win it, right? He did the Ironman earlier that year. Same thing, called Chris, said, "Hey, I'm 2 weeks from the Ironman. What do you think?" Screw it, do it,
Yeah.
Did you come out for the Ironman that year?
Yeah, we drove I got a Subway pastrami sandwich. We stopped.
You were staying with me in Vegas.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right. Yeah, you came out. And,
Yeah,
I mean, that look was really solid.
yeah.
03 Olympia, he came out, Coleman crazy that year.
Yeah.
I remember, that was the year I thought I was going to win. 04, I got crazy big after doing the Arnold, which I kind of downsized my judgment. You kinda let me do that. You were just like, whatever.
Yeah, you want to come
back big. Just come back big for the
Olympics. But there wasn't really enough time, I don't think, between you put back a lot of mass and then, you had different looks, different years, but as you said, if you had won in 01, you probably would have just run with it and be like giant all the way through for 10 straight.
Let's talk about 2008. So I lose to Dexter. And I remember, like, it was just, we're kind of puzzled with, like, hey, what's going wrong in the preparation. A lot of people around me, right? A lot of opinions. And
there's always opinions.
I know, but, if you remember, we kind of started and we kind of kept everyone's opinions out of.
Yeah.
Chris is my guy. He's prepping me. And, as you become better and better, people start putting their 2 cents. It's just like the guy that says, oh, you have to do more cardio to get in better shape, right?
Can't eat bagels.
Yeah. I lose to Dexter. It's a devastating time for me. Like, is the reign done, right? 07, I obviously Victor was closed that year. I had the infection that year, if you remember.
I do remember.
And then
that was like last minute snafu.
So I remember a conversation we have, and you're just like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Like, we can do everything that we've done. And so I make the decision to, at some point, Hani ends up training me for 09. And, ask, what do we want to talk about with that a little bit?
No, just you watching from the outside. What did you think?
Like, because everyone now says 09, Jay comes back, is this the best Jay Cutler ever? Explain to me your thought process when you saw me come out on stage.
I thought you looked great. I just, when people say, what do you think?
Well, I was definitely, listen, I was 254.
Yeah.
Which Milos argues with me, like, there's no way because you look way bigger than that. But
you weren't standing.
I was still, yes, but I feel like the body had started to take a little bit of toll on the pounding. And I look back now, and I think if I would have continued on the trek of like 02, 03, where it was like I wasn't doing as much cardio, where, listen, I did two sessions of cardio a day, 45 minutes on the step mill. You never had me on a step mill before. You didn't care what kind of cardio. You can talk about that. Like, cardio is cardio. Is there something that is...
You can go to the bank and you can tell people, they can say, what do you own? And you say, I own a Louis Vuitton store. And you actually making the deposits from the dollar store. Cash is cash. Cardio is cardio.
Yeah.
Expenditure is expenditure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I feel like, it's still that question. 01, I just had that younger look where, here I am in 09 at 37. I think it was 30. Yeah, it was around 37. 36 probably. You're coming towards that. I've been training a long time. Obviously the condition was there. People say it was my best in years. The switch up, I always thought, people ask me what the difference between that at like 09 and other years were. And definitely I always talk about like anti-estrogens, which people are baffled because we never discussed anything chemically induced, rarely, right?
True.
It was never like, okay, this is your show prep.
Yeah.
And you're going to take this. It was never a discussion with us. Yeah. And people don't believe this.
Well, they don't believe anything.
You only gave me the 50 carbs, 100 protein. It was like anyone that works with you knows the Chris Aceto diet techniques.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's the very
simple.
Yes.
Yeah.
That way.
Very simple. I think the devil's in the details. When you get too, I don't think it's, I kid and say I don't believe in science. I think I think the earth is flat, and I don't believe in global warming, and I don't believe in macros. Just to make a joke, but I keep things simple because the way that I do it is you know this, Jay, is when I can find someone's rhythm and everyone's rhythm's going to be different, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Things don't matter as much. Once that locomotive is going down the railroad track at 70, takes a long time that guy to slam on the brakes to get that thing to slow down. Once your body's going in the right direction, it don't matter if you're eating bagels or and the most important part is get that locomotive flying down the track. And people get into like, no, but you need this. You can't prepare. You can't eat bagels, and you need this product, this anabolic to prepare for a show. I'm like, well, I know a lot of people who have the access to the best, and they use the best, and I don't think they look very good, So, I mean, there's a lot of factors to it. So we never discussed it. It's crazy.
But
I mean,
what did you think of the 09 look?
I thought it was very refined, dry, and impressive. But people always ask me, what's his best look, and I just know that those rounder looks, really
My physique because because of the a lot of times. I mean, I was at that show, and like Branch was second, Dexter was third, Phil Heath was coming up, Kai Grain, obviously.
A lot of times in earlier years, your shoulders just look like that has to be fake. Triceps has to be fake. Back width has to be fake. Thigh sweep has to be, you know what I mean? Like just...
You're mentioning a lot of things that I started to, like I didn't have the crazy lat width there. I didn't have the crazy, even though the quad stomp, it was cut, right? But I didn't have the sweeping thighs. I always said it was...
Quad stomp was the 01 Olympia. That started, you did that there.
Yeah, but we didn't have as much social media then, I think,
Yeah. People that take pictures but I remember the 01 Olympia when you quad swung. It was swing around the end of the prejudge, and if you remember that prejudge, we would talk about it all the time, but we don't talk about it, but people talk about it. But that was also, besides the first day, there was a 2-day show going back to that show.
Pacific West Injury Law. Injured? Call 602-HURT. Car accident? Call 602-HURT. Our firm is dedicated to you and your recovery.
It was the first time they had 2 people in a final call-out, and you knew they were judging it. And I remember Manu was making the calls, and he had to scream over the microphone because the audience was so crazy.
Jay Cutler and Ron Coleman.
It was a scream.
01.
Yeah.
And when they said absent thighs, it was crowd went completely nuts. And then you're most muscular that year. There's not a lot of pictures of that, but that with the delts and the triceps and the sunken abs and the strided pecs and both quads were strided, just not even locking them out.
Thank you. Back in line.
Deeply, deeply, deeply crazy. So,
01 was the trigger.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to 2013, your comeback.
Yeah.
Because you guys rehooked back up.
Yeah, listen, I called him. First time he charged me for a prep, by the way, and told me the money. And,
could have bought a house in...
Yeah. So I said, listen, man, I want you back on the team. Let's finish this thing together. I knew it was going to be my last, I think, that year. And, obviously went in and I finished 6th that year, which was a little disappointing. My body was just running at that point, it was, but I knew that was my last.
It was a very, very short prep.
Yeah. because I was touring on the bus and all that.
Yeah, you were, and I mean, it was like crazy short prep. It was like crazy short,
Weeks, yeah.
like weeks. And you didn't have like the foundation.
Didn't have the mass. I stepped away. I never thought I was going to compete again after
Yeah.
the bicep tear in 11 and
I
sat out
did-
12.
Was it? Did they want you to compete?
Yes, I was starting a new
Yeah.
supplement line.
Yeah, and they wanted you to compete, and there wasn't much time. And you metamorphosized, and anyone around.
Yeah, that's a
you
living
was-
large trainer year, all that.
Yeah, 11. I don't know.
But we were still pretty confident I was going in. I mean, I was competing against Roden was coming up at that
Yeah.
time, 13. So Phil Heath won. That was his one call-out show.
Yeah,
It was like only him
Yeah.
and Dory had ever had the one call-outs that year. And, I finished. That was Rami's first, if you remember.
yeah.
But that was kind of the end. I mean, that was where I knew it was kind of the end, and
Yeah.
we kind of started together and finished together
it was
that
good.
year.
Good.
And I knew once Roden beat me and these guys, I said, "Yeah, this is different era now."
Yeah. Well, it was a different era. I mean, you'd had a, the issue really is, my opinion is having all that time off. It's like shutting down your supplement company. Saying we're going on vacation for a year, and you come back and you call the vendors and like, nah. I mean, it's not a really good analogy, but
You feel once you step away, Chris, it's
yes,
the density and
it's the density,
the mindset.
You're not in the box. You got freed of the box. You lived in the box.
I went through the divorce and I had so many changes in my life.
Yeah.
So to dive back in again, I'm sure you were looking around being like, okay, what's your camp like? Like and I say camp meaning like, what's your structure?
Yeah.
How important is the structure to like, do you agree that it's like, I always say like same place, same time, same everything?
Has to be in anything. You know what I mean? If you're running your supplement company, I'm sure you do the same things. Mondays is this, Tuesdays is this, Wednesday has to be this. No matter what, you can't miss this certain thing on Thursday. You need the structure, and you can't double up. You know what I mean? And you know that from bodybuilding, you can't double up and say like, we screwed up here, so on next week we're just going to make up for it. And in bodybuilding, you have to be, you have to be in that box, and you have to do the same thing all the time. And you have to be selfish as a bodybuilder. It's the hardest. It's the worst. It's a great sport, but it's the worst sport because you have to be remarkably selfish, because it's the only sport where when you're not doing it, you're still doing it. You know what I mean? The damn diet and the rest, it's so important.
How do you go? I mean, you were a collegiate champion, right? How do you go from that life to, I mean, you train now, your son's obviously competing. What's the life?
How fun? Jay had a good laugh. When I don't FaceTime him much, but I usually, when I'm driving back from Portland, I call him, and he knows I'm driving back from Portland when I call you, because I get
Only time you can get on a phone call,
It'd be like either Guy, you, or Jose Raymond.
Yeah.
And if I can't get in touch with Guy, I'll call Jose. If I can't get in touch with Jose, I'll call Jay. And in fact, so the how important was what? I lost my train of thought.
I was asking you, like, you were competitive.
Oh,
So you lived on that side, and now, like, getting you to the gym is...
I never go to the gym.
Yeah.
I never go to the gym, can't go to the gym. And the answer to that is I can't. I've tried a few times, and there's this weird, sometimes like I'll go like, oh, wow, this is really great. I got a pump and I feel good. And then I have this incredible, weird feeling that I had in 2000. Like my body's like, my immune system's, it's crazy. I can go like 5 hours sleep, 5 hours sleep, 5 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep, 6 hours sleep, work 18-hour days nonstop, be fine. But you add that stress to the weights, and it's like, oh my, it's not like tired. It's like something brewing with my immune system that's saying, don't do this. But I was with Dave Palumbo and his wife. Dave always asked me, why don't you go to the gym? Why don't you go to the gym? Why don't you go to the gym? And I'm thinking, like, Dave, you got like fake hips and fake shoulders.
Because he knows how good you were as a bodybuilder.
I said, why don't you go to the gym with me? Or why don't you go to the gym by yourself? And one day, his wife asked me, we're on a bridge in Miami, and Dave figured it out. He goes, oh, I got it now. I got it, because you only have one speed. You either have to go and do the 6 meals and train balls to the walls. There's not anything but that gear. And I was like, that's it. That is it. And,
It's either all in or nothing.
we talked a little bit about that. Jeff King.
Yeah.
John Hansen said, "Oh, you guys see the Jeff King Matt Dufresne interview?"
It was great, by the way.
Yeah, it was great. And because he said, your name comes up. So I said, oh, let me listen to it. My name comes up. So I'm back, watching on my phone, driving back from Portland. When my name comes up, they go like, yeah, he was really, really disciplined and into like Matt was crazy. It's like Chris was like really focused. And so it's hard to focus on two things at one time. So as you know, no one did business better than in bodybuilding better than Jay when he's bodybuilding. But he took it to another level when he had the freedom after retirement to put that same energy into business. Because you can't do both. Even though Jay, nobody guest posed like, I mean,
I ran business, man.
Jay was like, okay, I'm in this and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna capitalize, and it was like this product, that product. Where I wouldn't talk to you much. It'd be like I wouldn't even ask you. Like I'm in Ohio, I'm in Spain, I'm in Ireland, I'm in South Africa. Like every week, and then like come to a show, you'd shut it down like a certain amount of weeks. But it was always traveling and business and traveling and connections and
I mean, you taught me that in the beginning, if you remember. I mean, that was my dream, was to be able to monetize this thing. And
I remember you asked me in my kitchen, can I make money from this? And I said yes.
There's a lot of money today in bodybuilding. Don't you feel like it's even more tremendous the amount of money people can make with social media? You work with Ramon, who's a superstar. I mean, you're training Andrew Jack, who's coming into his own now.
Yeah.
We have so many guys, right? I mean, you see the monetization these guys do with social media. It's pretty annoying for you sometimes, though, is like the media and all that always around, right? I mean, videos and
I don't let them like.
So, like, when you're looking at these guys, are you
can't commit?
Yeah,
I put a squash to that.
Kind of like the boxing.
Yeah, that's not. I'm only here for this show to help the people who are in the show look the best that they can, and that's all I'm here for. I'm not here for media. I'm not here for Instagram. I'm not here for YouTube. I don't have a YouTube station. I don't care about being part of your YouTube. I don't want to be on your YouTube. That's just not me. That's not why I'm doing it, because it feels, well, it's not fake, but it feels unauthentic to me. I just want to be there like, you know what everyone says to me? Oh, everyone tells me this. I can give you all the names. They said when they retire, they say, I miss coming to your room.
And just hanging out?
Hanging out and me taking a look at them and me talking crap.
I know, but
me saying, you look crazy, and...
Were the conversations only about bodybuilding, though, or was it just talking?
More, it depends on the person.
Those are bros, right?
Yeah,
You're like bro talk.
Yeah.
You don't have to get up right. It's so random. Tampa Pro about 6 years ago, Regan's down. And you guys had a room somewhere, and it didn't have a kitchen, so I shifted it over to like a Quality Inn that had a kitchen.
Oh, my God.
So Chris comes over, and he posts a picture, and he goes, well, here's first call out. And it's 3 cockroaches, and he's comparing the 3 cockroaches.
There was I was like talking to
was there
John. Who was the guy from Canada who was really good in the classic? Could have won the Classic Olympia. Was in the running for a while. Like 1 year, he was incredible. John Pierre.
Oh yeah.
I used to coach
Pierre, from Montreal.
Yeah, Pierre. Henry Pierre.
Henry Pierre, yeah.
And Henry's like, I'm talking to him like this. And did you have the camera?
I just know you said.
And I'm like looking at him, and there's like cockroaches all around. They were.
It was a nice hotel. It was a normal hotel though. So Chris, and then I ended up coming over there, and his hair's all over the place.
He didn't care.
He slept in 3 days, and he's like, "Thanks for the nice hotel."
Yeah. That was crazy.
Oh, Chris, I remember that you'd stay with me in these rooms, and I'd like wake up in the middle of the night, and you'd jump out of bed like, "What? Are you cramping? Are you cramping?" You'd be so nervous because I'd make it like, Chris, you got to see this. He's like, "Oh, are you cramping?" He was so nervous about me cramping all the time, and he's like, "Okay, let me see what you look like." And I'd get him in the middle of the night and pose, and And we were sharing these cots in Italy. Do you remember for the Joe Weider show in 2000 tour?
Yeah, there was. We stayed in England once, and you couldn't. The shower door was so wide. They tried to walk into the shower, and the he was like this wide, but the entry to it was like concrete on both sides. It was a dump. He couldn't get in, and even turning to the side.
Chris, I remember coming off the plane. And I was so dehydrated. I don't know if we were. You went to? Did you go
Italy?
No, but did you go to Moscow with me too on that tour?
Yeah,
I remember so dehydrated. I'm like, Chris, I can't walk, and he's like helping me walk.
There was a barking dog. There was a barking dog.
Yes, that was in Italy.
Okay,
it kept us up all night. But you were like helping me, and I'm like, dude, my feet padding were gone because I was so dehydrated.
We don't eat those.
Keep sucking it up.
He's like,
you're gonna be shredded.
We just ate the Christmas tree.
It was so crazy. I'd be on the plane. He's like, I got to see what you look like. We'd be flying, and I was the only guy that didn't hold water on planes ever.
Yeah, you liked it.
Yeah.
So I get tighter. This is a Jayism. I get tighter on planes.
Yeah.
I told Jay before you came here, two of the best bodybuilders of all time are obviously Ronnie and Phil. And your guys dethroned.
Yeah.
Both of them. The guys that people said could never be beaten.
One of someone sent me a video of Sean Roden winning the Olympia, and just weird. Someone had a video, and either you came down, because you're waiting for second place Sean Roden, right? You know what I mean? So it's like coming down to the wire, and they when they announced Sean as winner, the place erupted, and doesn't always when the defending person loses, and Jay came down.
You were 4 rows behind me, I think.
Yeah, Jay came down and high-fived. Someone said, I wish I had it. I think it was Ron Partlow might have sent it.
Well, he was somehow, Matt's always seems to find his place in the room for all these, right? We talk about that. Matt seems to always be in the mix somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And he's comes back, he's like, dude, I just saw Sean Roden, and he's going to win the Olympia.
We were 1,000% confident.
Downstairs.
I said, Phil Heath isn't going to, he's winning 8, he's going to win 10.
No.
We said, dude, I don't know.
When you saw him in the hotel room?
He looked like a little mini elephant. I can't describe what he looked like.
No.
Didn't look real. He never looked like that.
No.
And I said he was going to win.
15, he was good. He was really, really, really good. And I remember we did wrap-ups at 15, and the consensus was he was going to win. But, he had issues. 15, it was the first year he did the off-season. Sean, you
need an off-season.
Well, Sean got the Jayism talk.
Yeah.
Sean came to me via Jay. And
I remember I sat up and I talked to Roden all night in Orlando, yeah.
And he got off the plane, he called me and said, I just talked to Jay for hours. And
told him he needs to work with you.
Yeah, and if you know what's so crazy is that year, Sean had got 9th, I think, at the Arnold. And Dave, you're too lazy to look it up, Palumbo. But we did a wrap-up. And we did a wrap-up after the show, and we did, talked about, it was a real deep Arnold that year. And I remember watching the show, and I saw Sean Roden, and he posed to Whitney Houston's song, and I just left, an impression, I was looking at him, I was like, God, he's really good. And Dave said, anyone else you want to mention? I said, let's talk about Sean Roden. And he said, yeah, okay, I want to talk about Sean Roden. And Dave was kind of hot, it's like, oh, he's good, but how far could he go? He asked me this, what if he was working with you? And I didn't hesitate. I said, win the Mr. Olympia. And then, the irony is, 2 weeks later, he calls me, and we started working with each other 12, and he had, that great 12 year where he cleaned up and got third, and, 15 rolls around, and he takes a big off season, and he just got monstrous. People are like, wow, Sean Roden got big. And 15 Olympia. I'm biased, but I thought I thought he could have won, and lots and lots and lots of other
Was he
people.
second that year? Nice.
No, he was actually third.
He got third.
Oh.
That's what
third,
Dexter
but
looked
okay.
ridiculous.
Well, the prejudging was matched up. I thought, reading the tea leaves, it was the call-outs were for Sean to be first. That's how I felt. You know, when you follow the call-outs and you know what's going on. And then 16, I thought he was going to win in 16, and he had stomach issues. Like, he got second, but it was like that's not the guy I saw 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It was like a figment of what he looked like. People, you look great. I'm like, you know how that goes when you 07, right?
Yeah.
That's not what was supposed to be on stage.
Yeah.
Compared to what was 3 weeks out. And then 17, he had the broken jaw. And then, so the only time he got to, like, get back to, like, the 15 was the 18. You know what I mean? And even then, he didn't have the mass, but, you know, things fell together.
Even in 17, though.
But yes, Jay ran down, it took Jay technically 8 times to run down Coleman, and it took Roden 8 times to run down Heath.
Even
I thought that was ironic.
Even in 17, though, Sean, when you looked at him downstairs,
Yeah.
I thought he looked
Me too.
just as good as 18, but something happened
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
leaving the hotel and on stage, and he faded.
Sean, that show, it's so funny, Matt. That show, Reagan was in the room,
Yeah.
you were in the room, we were bewildered, and he prepped. 17, 2017, he had a lot of issues, and the jaw, and I was at the USA, and he's I'm flying out to see you. I said, you don't need to. You're fat, you know, and you don't look good. And there's like 7 weeks to the show, and he said, no, I want to come out. And so he flew out. He came to Matt Kuba's room, who I prepped for that show, I was in Matt Kuba's room for like the whole 3 days, and I went to see Sean, and he posted me for 30 seconds, and I said, boy, you're even worse than I thought. And I said, he came on like that. He said, okay, I'll see ya. And he walked off. I didn't know where he was going. He got on that plane, and he went and did that was it. He went into like Rocky Balboa, and that was when Reagan was training with him. And Reagan was
California.
like, he's like tiny and fat. You know what I mean? I said, yeah, he's tiny and fat. And he somehow got it together. You and me and Reagan were in the room, and we thought he was nuts. He wasn't as round as 15, but he was good, and he looked like, if you see pictures of the hotel room that are published, they're still around. People think that's 18, and it's not. It's 17 where he got smoked.
Yep.
And
the platinum against the wall,
Yep.
lighting. Yep.
And we went to prejudging, and he had the pink trunks on, and he looked like somebody dipped him in ice cream. He just looked like shit. And I was like, what the? You know, first I thought it was the lighting. I'm like, oh, this is just the lighting.
Well, because he just left the room, right? And you
Just left the room.
Great.
And what happened? We went back there, and he missed a composure. He just like sat down, and nobody said a word. And I said, let me see what you look like. And he was peeled again. He was peeled out of his mind again. And then at the night show, which was like the next day, they just couldn't do anything. They couldn't move him up.
Yep.
They couldn't move him up because he was like dusted in prejudging, but he looked like bone dry for the night show, even harder than like when we saw him in the hotel room. And it was like, Jay, it was just like one of the Olympias where you didn't play, you know. I just thought after that, I said, God, if you could have brought that condition, if you could have brought that package.
You could have won.
And he wasn't even that big, you could have won. So that's how I knew 18 was like if things could just not, if you could avoid that 1 hour, which I never figured out what it was.
You don't know to this day
No.
what it was.
No.
I difference we finished that year.
I would have liked. I would have liked to go back to the hotel room and say, "Let's see what you look like," and say, "Yeah, you look like shit. That's how you look like on stage." But when he looked like that, it was like, how's that work?
Ever since that show, whenever someone will say, "What's your prediction?" I said, "I'm not making one." I said, "Why?" And I said, "Because there's so many variables, and sometimes things go wrong that you don't know."
Yeah, and that was
the show right there.
There was no like crazy.
No crazy food, no
nothing.
And then when he was up there, when you saw it, we thought for sure it was going to be him next to Phil, and then Steve moved him out, and then he faded more, and he moved him. And you could just see he knew, and it just got him.
And then, so I knew 18 couldn't beat. I mean, that was like
18, he was just in a good place in life, too.
Yeah, that always is important.
Yeah. I had many conversations with him.
Yeah,
he was in a really good place.
Well, he came on Jay's show and dropped the hammer.
Yeah, he said, "I'm winning." You know, I was kind of like, "Wow!"
It was like you in 2001. Like, I'm winning this, slam dunk. I got it.
So this year, you got people. Obviously, you don't have to make predictions or anything, but talk about some of your guys this year.
How many you have in the show total?
7. Yeah,
you're back to the days now.
Well, what happens? I mean, it just. Yeah, 7.
I thought you focused on being a dad and a real estate guy and everything else, and you're still coming to these shows, you know. Did he tell you this?
I just, you start with someone and like here they are at the Olympia, Some people, is like, I got a kid from Indonesia. I got Matt Grego in the Classic.
Oh, he's in it?
Yeah, he's very good. I got Ramon in the Classic. Let's see, that's 3. Keem in the Open, Andrew in the Open, that's 5. Marcelo Alfonso, 212, 6. And Lamar, Lamar. Send me enough pictures, I don't even know your last name. Lamar.
What division?
Classic. Yeah, he's been in the Olympia before. He was 2022. I'm like, the show starts, I'm like, where the hell's Lamar? He had a car accident, and he called me in a panic, like, I had a car accident, a police report, and I hit someone or someone hit him and trying to get to, car accident. He's lost his mind, And I'm like, can you make it to the show? The show had started. There was 63 people. So they did the first line.
It's going to be 60 this year also.
They did the first line of like 15. So it was taking a while. And then, so I'm like wondering, like, where is he? They did the 60. I'm like, God, he's not there. That's when the phone rang. And then I think they get to come out and do their individuals. And I might have called like Steve Weinberger, or I said, there's a guy, he had a car accident. And I think it was Steve. And Steve says, is there it's a fluke, right? What do you do? They said, is there a police report? Which was the first thing that he told me, there's a police report. I said, yeah. I said, okay, in case, people bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So, He did the show that year, looked really good, but he's requalified. But that's a crazy story, right? Can you imagine being in the Olympia? You drive into the show and someone either he rear-ended someone or they did to him, and like
almost missed it.
Yeah. Right? If I was in the car with you, Jay, I would say, let's just run for it.
Yeah.
We'll pay the fine.
Could be a once in a lifetime opportunity,
We'll pay for the fine till we get there.
But you see these division changes. I mean, you were around bodybuilding, a lot of errors. I mean, talk about, like, we were talking about DeMeo, how crazy he was, Mike Francois. I mean, you've seen the guys train the hardest, look the craziest. If you could say, like, the craziest look you've seen of all these guys you worked with, who, like, even if it's not someone you worked with, like, who kind of, do you remember the people that actually looked at, like, I always talk about Lee Priest when I saw him, when I was like, oh my gosh.
You sat next to me at the 95 Olympia.
Dorian Yates.
Dorian came out, and I remember seeing pictures of the magazine and said, it looks like crap.
Yeah.
But when he like, the guys came out, and everyone looked like NPC bodybuilders, and Dorian. Like, his legs and calves were so much, they were like 4 times as big as, like.
Which is crazy, because still you look at pictures and people have these polls, and they're like, who would beat who? And Dorian gets pushed to the bottom.
Ringo Starr.
Yeah. He gets pushed to the bottom. You know what I mean? And if they only saw those
that's
years.
why I brought his name up. You know, when 95 Olympia.
We were there, yeah, Atlanta.
Said, when Dorian came out, you hit my shoulder, and you laughed. And then when he hit a side tricep, which he technically has like a weird, I mean, it's not like the beautiful cap, and like the pecs in pictures look flat, and the legs don't look like, you don't have like the glute ham line like a Dexter. Yeah. But when he hit a side tricep, it was like, why is he even in the show? Why do you just send in the pictures and let? I mean, that's how impressive he was. He was paper thin skin, and just weirdly dense, right? Like the front lat spread.
Even like your relationship's not so great. Sean Ray, talk about his body. I mean, he was.
No, I always say Sean's an idiot, but he had a great physique.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Levrone at his.
Yeah. Kevin,
some of those Olympias he came out, he was like a chameleon where he could just change.
Just took the, you know what? The Olympia, he was in the 97 Olympia.
When it was at Long Beach.
Disaster prejudging, like water buffalo, almost look fat. I would say it was like a rodent. Like, how'd that happen in that short period of time? And it was a 2-day show, and he came back the next day. He wore blue. This is how well I remember: blue trunks and prejudging. Kevin, water buffalo. All his trademark shots look. This almost looks small, like small. It just looked weird. And the next day he wore red trunks, and he was just probably the winner. But maybe he was 7th in prejudging. You know, he had lousy calls, and deservingly so, you know. But, I mean, you don't need so much they can move you up after. I mean, it is.
He ended up like 4th or something, I think.
You know what problem is with, I want your opinion, either a 2-day show or a prejudging and finals. Which one's more important? It's like 2 shows at one.
The prejudging, yeah.
It should be I think the prejudging, because that's when people have, they're the unknowns, you know, like, should I come in peeled? Should I come
The problem is with the prejudging at the Olympia is it's disrespectfully at a bad time slot, meaning the priority should be the men's bodybuilding. It's what's drawing everyone here. We just talked about this, and someone just sent me a schedule, and like they have all these divisions and then men's prejudging. If they tell you, hey, you're going on at 11 p.m., okay, you're going on at 11, but you don't have to be here at 7 o'clock.
Only Sergio Oliva does good.
Yeah, so...
Because he sleeps too.
Yeah, you just can't, like, but you got to navigate your routine. A lot of people in Las Vegas, the last week, we're here, it's almost 11 o'clock at night, but people don't stay up that late.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for people to be, after eating that many meals. I still think a body is his best if you had a noon prejudging or
11 a.m.
Yeah, like after you eat a meal or two, right?
Yeah.
Once you eat 6 meals, Chris, are you going to look better? I mean,
no.
Depleting water, and you as a coach, you know this.
No.
How do you prepare knowing that you don't know exactly what time they're going on?
It's probably that something I should think about more.
Yeah, he's thinking about it right now. He's like, holy shit, he's right.
If they say they're going to go on
the benefit of the show is to realize, one takeaway from the show is that I'm just realizing now, I forgot, you know, that it's a late show, and that plays a factor, especially the bigger guys, because it's harder to,
hell yeah.
You know,
what do you tell them to start eating at noon, like sleep in? I mean, these guys are up at 5 a.m, not sleeping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still, I know you need a prejudge in the finals, but a lot of times we hear so-and-so was great for the finals. Well, you're too far behind, you know, for the prejudge. I mean, it's what if you had flip it. You had a shitty finals and you had a great prejudging. You know, you were ahead by, you know, like I solidly had you in first, but then what do I switch you to second?
I mean, it's like what Europe does that. They do a prejudging finals all in one shot, right? And it's literally back-to-back. I just think it's very difficult, I think, to peak. You basically ask them to compete in two different contests.
Well, two-day shows.
And the big bodies, hence that's why we're seeing our top two guys right now being Hottie and Derek, right? I mean, they can probably peak the bodies. Probably don't take as much volume as it takes to feed an Andrew or Sampson or, some of these other bigger guys, Hunter Labrada.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult in that sense, right?
If they're going to have prejudging on Friday, it should be right at 7 when it starts. Let them go first. Or, and I've said this numerous times, I wish they would do it at the Expo at high noon.
Well, there's
30,000 people.
There's nothing wrong with the noon prejudging.
Just think of
Arnold Classics did it all those years.
I mean, why? I guess why not have it at noon? I mean, is it a marketing that you get sell more tickets at night? You're going to sell out. You could have it at 6 a.m. and it'd still sell out at this point with the fan base that's coming.
I just think if they did it at the Expo, even if you charge $20 more a ticket
I get
at
it.
the Expo, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
But think of as an athlete walking out with 20 or 30,000, because you go there, when you go see Classic and some, there's a sea of people. There's way more than they're at the show.
Yeah.
Right? The Classic is at the Expo. Right?
Yeah.
There's 20,000 people around there. It's
Like what time? Like 9 or?
I think it starts at 9:30, but I don't know like the order because there's different, maybe with all the.
Just make it about the athletes.
Yeah.
The fans are they're going to pay. They're going to want to see it.
Well, you remember the Olympias when there was no Expos, Chris. It was all about just have bodybuilding, men's and women's. I mean, Mandalay Bay, they had that tiny expo the first year, 99. We had those couple booths, and we just were worried about a contest. That was it.
Here's a funny Jay and Cormier story. Is I'm at some show, Nationals something, and I had no idea Jay was going to be there. And I'm with Mike Francois at the Champion Nutrition booth. I'm at Max.
They sponsor me.
Yeah, and so I'm talking with Mike and just me and him talking, and he goes, this is way early on. He goes, "Here comes Jay." And I look, and here comes Jay. I said, "How did you know?" He said, the legs are the width, exactly how you explained them. Didn't even know. Huh?
Yeah.
And then there was 1 year, it goes way back, 91 Olympia I helped, and Montreal Pro I helped Bob Paris.
Who was why I started training, by the way, Bob Paris.
Funny. One of Jay's idols, Chris Dickerson.
Yeah. And
I talked to Bob a lot, and I had my office at Gold's in Venice, and we were talking, and thank God for Ed Connors gave me that office. Can't repay him back for what he did. And so I'm walking out by Ed's office is like the glass door, and we're talking, and it's just like the conversation's never going to end, So it's like I got to get back to work, or you just got to leave. But we're talking shop, bodybuilding, me and Bob, and he goes, "Oh, I can't do his voice, but oh, here comes Chris." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "There's Chris." Nobody knew who Chris Cormier was. He's exactly how you...
Was he a teenager then, or
20 maybe?
Yeah.
So exactly how I explained. I just said there's this guy. He's not big. He's not small. He's Cormier's like Goldilocks. You know what I mean? Not too, when the oatmeal's not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah, he's
he's
nothing
right in the
crazy.
middle.
Yeah.
And then when you get him up on stage, it's okay, lack of weaknesses starts to move up awfully fast.
Yeah.
Really good condition moves up. Perfect execution. But Bob saw it, and Chris had a tank top on, and Bob picked him out of
just threw the name out there. That's
he saw them coming across the parking lot 40 yards away. It had to be 40 yards away. And so I asked him, he says, exactly how you explained him. And so I said, Chris. I introduced him to Bob, and we laughed because I said, Chris didn't know what I was talking about. He said, he picked you out, 40 yards away. He said, "How do you know it's me?" I said, "Because I explained your physique."
What's funny is when I went to the Teen Nationals, I actually drove and I left my vehicle at Chris's. I flew from, was it the Jeep? I think might have been the Jeep or something. So I flew from Portland or something to North Carolina, my mom and everything. And I remember him sending me off, and he's like, don't worry about it. No one's going to beat you. There's no teenager's going to look like this, And I remember calling him like, oh, there's this kid that beat me, he had really good legs. And he's like, how the hell could he beat you in Branch Warren?
Yeah.
He was like crazy. I said, he'll never beat me again.
Jay already put the markers down.
Yeah.
Pre-Dillette.
Yeah. It was funny. Like, we had Branch on here, and he was telling us, he's like, in 09, and he's like, Tim, Dexter, and Jay, and he goes, Dexter's named third, and he goes, shit, I just beat Mr. Olympia. Looked over, and Jay's still there.
Yeah.
Because Dexter was around Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Who is your first client, and when was that? Like actual, or you said?
That's an odd question for Chris.
Yeah.
Because I never called him my coach. I never called him my nutritionist. I don't know what I just was.
So when
he
you
was
started helping,
Chris.
where you literally said, "Hey, I'm doing this for them." I didn't know if there was like a certain person you were saying, "In this year, this is the first."
It may have been DeMeo, like when he was 20. Yeah, maybe.
How about these teenagers? Some like Mike Quinn as a teenager. Crazy, right?
Would be calling.
He sent
Olympia.
He sent me pictures. You should see these pictures. Mike Quinn.
How about Mike Quinn and Victor Terra?
Yeah, but teenagers, dude, they look like
they'd win the nationals.
Hands
down.
It's teenagers.
Hands down. Hands down.
What do you think of the state of bodybuilding now?
Well, it's growing. Obviously, the shows are growing and the NPZ is expanding. I mean, period. But I think at the national amateur level, it's people don't want to hear it, but it's not like the national. Bo Matlock comes to, Edgar Fletcher. They couldn't even win the shows. They come to mind as like how competitive.
I mean, look at the junior nationals when Kevin Levrone showed up when you were helping DeMeo.
Yeah, when I was helping DeMeo. So it's growing, but I think that the open talent pool. I told Dave this from like day one. I told him that the classic bodybuilding is going to suck away a lot of natural quote talent that would have navigated its way to the open, and that's just a fact. But look how popular divisions become and how like the growth in it. And then I mean, like men's physique is sucking away a lot of. I mean that no negative way sucking away, but it sucks away a lot of people who would have say, I'm going to bodybuild. But frankly, a lot of people don't want to live in a box. I'm not saying that classic people don't live in a box. I'm not saying that people who win men's physique shows do not also live in a box. I just think it's harder to live in the box when you're 280 versus,
180.
Yeah, it's just a whole different animal. It's a different level of, I wouldn't say commitment,
but if you were starting off,
I'd go into classic.
I couldn't. Look at my body.
No, you're too wide.
My waist was too wide. My hips too big.
Your shoulders are too wide and your legs are too big. Right? They would have kicked you out and said, go to open. You said, I love this division. They said, we don't love you.
Yeah.
Go to open.
I mean, what
were you always concerned with when you come up to my house when you're 18, 19, 20, 21? God, was the first thing out of your mouth?
I don't remember. Oh, yeah.
Because
I was so wide, yeah.
You're so wide. Like if you like got up close, say your pecs are great. And I would say your pecs are great, great side chest. And they always say, yeah, but I got to have the full pecs. Pecs are flat.
Well, Luzowick would give me a hard time. Yeah, the line, when you could see I get flat. Yeah.
Then I know my pecs.
It took me a long time to fill out. I mean,
yeah. So yeah, I would have gravitated towards, classic, for sure.
It's much easier to turn pro now.
Yeah, in any division.
I mean, the first national show I went to was just the overall at the USA's, overall at North Americans.
Yeah.
Less than 10 guys a year turn pro. Now, One show will have 70 pro cards.
Do you still get a ton of requests to diet people and train people?
No, it's shocking that I don't. Do
you think they feel you're out of reach? Is that the problem?
No, I think they feel like I'm too old school. Not out of reach. I thought you could say old school, like backwards. Like it's not technical and it's not scientific and.
Well, did they so you think they expect more? Like they expect like scientifically, okay, this is what or they need to hold the hand more?
I don't know. I hear like I joke around with people like, who tell me who I do coach and say like, oh gosh, I should have done this a long time ago. They say like, I heard you didn't know how to do off seasons, and then another one I hear is I heard you you didn't know anything about anabolics.
Well, Chris, I mean you're because you don't talk about it. Your off season, like, okay, just go train and eat.
Yeah, well,
I mean that's all. Yeah. That was what you told me.
It was.
You didn't call and say, hey, how you doing? I need updated pictures. I mean, what are you going to do? Look at someone when they're fat? I mean,
some people I follow through like an off season, and my goal is just to get them, as big but not as fat as possible. Pretty simple.
It's disappointing though when people call and say, well, what drugs do I take? Right?
That's usually, I mean,
you just don't do it, right?
That's what it seems like nowadays. The people coming up, the first thing they want to know is, what are my drugs? They're not worried about how are they training, are they sleeping, their diet.
Yeah.
It's like if they don't have the drugs, they're just like, let me find another coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is backwards.
Yeah. I mean, I can, that's a big part of it, right? The magic formula.
There is no magic.
Sometimes I am going to give you, I kid with people in the room too this. I gave only Sean Roden this pill and Jay Cutler healed up their minds. And I'm gonna give it to you as $9,000. Because we joke over, the idea that that's not
placebo.
Yeah. You know what's funny though? He would be like, I don't care. And he would say it like 10 times. I don't care. He's like, let's just follow whatever the textbook is. You can't follow a textbook.
Yeah.
How you're supposed to diet and whatever. Just do the opposite and you're going to have better effect. That was the joke with us.
Yeah.
Because anything, like I can drink Coca-Cola walking out of the gym and people are like, when's the Olympia? A week away.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can't do that. I said, Chris, I can't do that. And he just laughed.
Now I have an even more serious question. Was your idea the candy corn or Chris's?
He didn't care
about the candy
corn and Boston.
How did the candy corn come about?
It was just about getting enough carbs.
Well, to reach the 1,000,
yeah, it was really hard.
You couldn't do the rice.
Yeah, I was having everything honey on my food, everything. I mean,
Jay grew best on pasta, and people said you can't.
I ate pasta 5 meals a day, chicken and pasta. You'd come to my house. How packed was my refrigerators and eggs and beef and
beef? Yeah,
I would cook for him. He would come. He'd be okay. What you want a meal? And
well, Jay, who's the meal company you have now? They send
MegaFit meals.
MegaFit. And Jay had mentioned once about people don't cook their meals. I didn't know that. I'm like, what do you mean they don't cook their meals? He said they have it meal prep. I'm like, for competition? I didn't even know. I'm like, I didn't know that. That was just recently. And I tell Dave on the show all the time, I said, when you lived on Eustace Street, Jay would start 6 a.m. You'd hear the eggs, all the eggs would crack. And he'd, the bowl, he'd cook all the food. And he'd sit down to eat it. And then, of course, Jay, you have to clean it up. It has to be perfect, like no one's lived in the house. And then maybe 90 minutes later, everything would start all over again to get meal 2 because they'd do 10 meals.
Yeah.
So it was just one nonstop.
It was cook, clean up, cook, clean up, cook, clean up, and then train.
Yeah, twice. It was just.
There's not much time in between then.
There's no time in between. That's why when he'd come up the main, it'd be okay, eat my meal, bye. I'm out of here.
But that's why the formula is so important, man. And that rigid lifestyle, it just what drives success in business, everything now today, it just carried over. Like we said, we're very structured and, you have a big Olympia in front of you right now, a lot of expectations. So Is it a lot of sleepless nights as we lead into this, or
my stress is zero.
Not yet.
Why?
Because
everyone's done their homework. Everyone's in the
people done their
position.
homework, and is that it's a lot of reasons. Subjective sport, and that's one. So anything can happen, right? And then two, you mentioned, I'll give you my Ramon spiel. It's like you. It's the long. You can't win every show, and it's the long run.
How many times has he been second to Chris now?
2. If the story is like, I helped him for his first pro show, and reminds me of you a lot in some ways. And he went to Spain during like COVID, and I was telling people this guy is gonna like be really good. This guy's gonna be really good. And he went to Spain during COVID, and there were like 60 guys in the show, and for some reason they announced, we're going to take top 2 to the Olympia. I'm like, well, that's a relief, And I was telling like people like Eduardo Correa, like, he can win. Nobody knew who he was, and I mean, outside of Brazil fans. And he went to the show, and like the scorecards come back, he won by a point. And if you look at the scorecards, he was like in third. He got second by the skin of his teeth. And then, he went to the Olympia, very, very inexperienced. Had the body, but I just not experienced on stage. I mean, one pro show, and he ended up getting 5th, and then went to the Arnold, got second. Then he went to the Olympia, got second. Went to the Arnold, won. Went to the Olympia, got second. Of course, went to the Arnold this year, got second. And now here he is again. But as long as there's no nerves or no anxiety or no worries, because if someone's put in the work, they put in the work. After that, let the chips fall. It's...
Is this his best?
Yeah.
Is Chris beatable?
Yes. Yes, this is his best, and yes, Chris is beatable. Yes to both. All you Brazilian fans. So, I'm happy with the way he looks. He's happy with the way he looks. I'm excited to see how it pans out on stage, and it's a competition.
What do you think about the Wesley Vissers hype?
I think he's really good. I gotta see him on stage again. I never saw him on stage. I wasn't there for the Arnold.
You didn't stay.
No. It was a 6-week prep for. I think Wesley from what I saw, looked tremendous. But what I always say about Ramon is he prepped for 6 weeks. That's on him. I let people do their own stuff. And
I remember you calling me, being like, "Dude, he hasn't even called me yet."
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, he was committed to the show, and so I let people do their own thing, because you got to learn your own lessons, and and my mother passed away, so I had to leave like on Wednesday, lost by a point.
if you were there, he would have won, right?
One more point. I mean, I was like,
He left in hands that.
Well, just I mean, I know, one thing I don't do is panic, even when someone should panic. There's a solution to something.
Yeah.
And, I think he was like too flat and prejudging, when I watched the video, and he probably knew it, because he didn't have any presence, like he should be there. Like, I'm the winner. This is, I'm going for number 2. Jay Cutler's going for number 2 for the Arnold.
Yeah.
And he didn't have that. So he might've known that. I don't know if it was that or because I wasn't there, because I've been there for like every show. So, but I think, they're big shows, but I think I distance myself really well. Like, I'm helping people, but I distance myself, not emotionally caught into the show, which I think,
Which is experience.
it's experience, and it's a really good position to be in because you can make judgments rather than react. So, you know, and you know me, today's what, Thursday? The show's miles away. Miles away. I mean, if Sean Roden can go from like great to terrible to great in 3 hours, it can happen in, there's like 400 hours or whatever it is to the show.
Talk a little bit about what's Andrew Jack's real name. Do you know what Andrew Jack's real name is?
Well, I only know it because I didn't even know that. More or less, I went to check in somewhere.
Yeah.
I went somewhere and I'm like, hi, text is like, Andrew Jack. They're like, he's not here. I'm like, Andrew Jack. So I look it up and I say Andrew Jack. It's jacked.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Andrew Jack, Jacked. And like, he's here. And I like text him. I'm like, you know, what's?
I need the room name.
Yeah, I need the room name. And he told me, and I just like Googled what's Andrew Jack's real name, and I said, "Do you have a name?" They said, "Oh yeah, we have it on that. That's his name."
Chinedu Obieki.
I like Andrew Jack. Easier for me to say.
Do you know that? Do you know that's his name? How do you know how to say it, or how do you say it again?
Chinedu Obieki.
Chinedu.
Has he ever said, "Oh, I call you and say, hey, this is Chinedu"?
No, I just text him anyway. I don't really.
Yeah.
Talk about Andrew a little bit, because obviously there's a type.
So Mr. Olympia walks in the room. Who was that person?
Andrew Jack.
I've said this a long time. When he walks in a room, he looks like Jay did, Ronnie
He
did.
walked in this door. He barely fit through the doors.
And he's got the shape.
Yeah, he's impressive, you know, and he's Andrew is impressive, and I sound.
Is he the most genetically gifted tall guy you've ever seen?
Yeah, I think so, and he's got the mind. I told people from day one. I told you this.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell you this because you have it. He has the mindset, and only people with the mindset, people who win the Olympia have the mindset.
That's what I said about Phil Heath too when I met
Yeah,
him.
he has the mindset. You know, and you have to have that mindset because I've been with people who could be Mr. Olympia who don't have the mindset. I could list them, and you know who they are off camera, and I could tell you that. It is, you know, it is what it is. Some people have it, and you know, he has the mindset. It's hard to explain to be able to win to Mr. Olympia. Obviously, Derek has the mindset, and Hardy has the mindset, and I'm not saying other people don't have the mindset because they
Nick
do.
Walker, yeah.
You know, yeah, exactly. Like him, I was thinking of Nick too. And there's other people who have mindsets, but you know, he's got the body and the mindset. So
He might have the most unique physique up there, with the width, the height, the waist,
well, it's LeBron. It's the LeBron body. Like he looks like 6'9". He's the only person in the. He's the only. I mean, half the guys, like, I'll see them and I'm like, okay, you know, meal 4 is this, and Andrew.
Yeah, how improved is he from last year's Olympia?
Oh God,
Night and day, right?
It's like, well, between last year and Olympia and the Texas was like a big jump.
I listen to a lot of the hype leading up right now, and they ask who wins front double, who wins front lat sprint, who lifts abs and thighs.
Yeah, I don't believe in hype.
But they talk about, like, there's not one person on any media channels that disagrees he doesn't win the front double, the front lat spread, abs and thighs.
That's 3 poses.
That's 3 out of, you know, and then you can start picking things. I mean, you go to rear double. I mean, there's a lot of things. And we talk about the posing. That's one thing I said. If he can improve the posing, and Samson's in the same boat, these guys can dominate the stage and really shock the world.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to, because he has the separation, the size, and he has a condition in certain areas that outweigh people. We talk about midsections, right? We talk about Hadi. And Hadi could have been overlooked for years, Chris. Yeah. I mean, he arguably could have had more than the Olympias he has, right?
Yeah.
But the midsection, how important is the midsection in these? I mean, Sean Roden,
Lee Haney.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fabulous midsection
set off with crazy shoulder width and sweep to the thighs.
His legs.
His legs are, you know what, the difference between last year and this year, whatever.
I remember we had a conversation. You were like, I said, where's he improved? And you're like, you started on every body part. Arms are bigger, shoulders are bigger, legs are bigger,
Well, the long limbs worked against him in the past, and now they work for him. It's bizarre that, the limbs were too long for the body, and now that they're bigger, they work as a feature for the body because, he's got long arms and they're gigantic on the front double.
He might have the biggest arms, including Nick.
Well, he's going to have it because he's 6'1" or 2, whatever he is. Yeah.
Yeah. You said he's got like a Wheeler Laverne hybrid arm.
We sat here 2 years ago, and when we said during his first one, I said he could be the first guy ever to walk into the Mr. Olympia and win first time out and make history. And we're disappointed he didn't do that. So ever since then, it's kind of been like, okay, we'll see what. I didn't make any predictions for this year, but I know people are saying he could be the guy that upsets the whole cart, right?
Yeah.
And
he could.
You'll see what it dials down to these next week,
Yeah.
A week from today?
We'll see if Chris dethrones
3,
maybe 4.
Yeah, maybe 4. Could be 2 for 2. Who knows?
You don't keep track though, do you?
I just keep track of the wins on my Instagram to annoy people. 123 wins, 45 athletes. I said the 45 people wouldn't fit my house.
What else?
No. I mean, it's. I don't know what else there is. I mean, I'm sure we could sit here for 10 hours and tell stories.
Oh, Jay, how about who tanned you by the tree when Lee Labrada was?
My mom. My mom
tanned you.
Yeah.
She put Protan on you.
Yeah, under the
tree. You could get Protan for the
No,
California.
I know. She drove out there, and we did between prejudge and finals. Okay, what do we do now? You told her go get donuts.
Did I?
I had donuts. Yeah, I had donuts in between the prejudging and finals. And she talks about that all the time. My mom's 83 now, so
Lee Labrada was there.
Yeah,
Espos. He looked great and
tremendous. He was second best in the world at that point.
Yep.
And I remember that was the first pro I actually saw like that. And I remember you introduced me to him, and you were like, hey, this is a kid I'm helping. And Lee, he was so polite, and he was all dressed to the nines.
Yes.
He was in a button-up shirt.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this guy's guest posing. And then all of a sudden, when he took his clothes off, I was like, man, wow.
Yeah. He's tiny.
But, you've seen all the greatest bodies, man. I mean, Victor Richards, people forget how big he was.
He used to guest pose all the time.
Yeah, I mean...
One year, I don't remember what year it was, but you carved Sean up with, it was donuts.
16 when he had the stomach issues.
It was I've always noticed that with Chris, it's never the same thing. Like some coaches, this is what you are. He would look and go.
The year I said, the 16 was not what was, the 16 was supposed to be 15 and better. And then 3 weeks out, he started I know when I say send me pictures again, something's up. And, and then he said his stomach's bothering him. But don't, Sean, don't worry. I got everything under control. You're not going to say, baby me. And then we got out to Vegas early, and he couldn't eat anything, because, it would kill his stomach. And, of course, he had the bleeding ulcers, less than a year later. So that was probably a prelude to it. And... I tried white bread, and that hurt his stomach, and
I just remember.
I said, just get some donuts, and I mean, what are alternatives? You can't eat protein, that's ripping your stomach apart. You can't eat white bread, that's you can mush it with your hand. Apple juice, you can't carb up on juice.
Yeah, won't stay.
Just do donuts, won't stay.
So Sean should have a bunch of donuts.
So just ate donuts for 3 days, and. That was a tough, very tough year for him because he thought he was going to bring something special, and you got a figment of it, and yet he still got second.
Yeah, a lot of tricks to the trade, man.
Yeah,
that's what makes it so interesting. And I'm sure we'll get into some other stories at some point, but we appreciate you coming on and
we could go forever.
Sharing a little bit. Yeah, man, I know it's a busy week for you, and I told Dave want to try to do the wrap up with you guys at one point, from there. So Saturday maybe.
Oh God, don't. That's it. Dave will text me talk to Jay about doing the wrap up. Make sure he's here.
I'll be there Saturday night only. Anyway. I'm not going to the prejudging, so you have to kind of fill me in on how that goes. You going to be able to stay up till midnight and watch the prejudge, or
prejudging? Well, remember the other 2 years ago, they when people realized it's ever going to go on, I posted on Instagram me falling asleep.
Yeah. I remember that.
That was a real picture. I fell asleep, and someone took it, and I said, "Send that to me," and I posted it, and it had like 40,000 likes in like an hour, because people were watching it, and like, what else? Well, I'm watching on my computer. What else can I do? See who's on Instagram, I guess.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is a true story.
That was when the guys had to walk outside.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They had to walk outside in the alley when it was cold out.
All right, well, man, it's great to see you again, and I hope you get to enjoy Vegas a little bit. You got your son here, so, you're going to take him to enjoy a little bit of the sights.
Yeah, well, we're going to go see the Michael Jackson.
It's a great show. It's a great show in Vegas.
See the Mind Freak. What's the Mind Freak?
Angel, Chris Angel.
Angel.
Yeah. Well, enjoy it, man, and I will look forward to seeing, hopefully we'll get a couple champions coming out of this one.
Exciting. It's going to be, however it pans out, there's always excitement post Olympia,
Mm-hmm.
It's the only truly.
He said that you're the most, you may have your guys, but in the end you always give it that analysis fair.
Yeah.
No, I've said that. I've said it to you. I've said it before. Like, you can listen to a bunch of coaches afterwards. When the show's over, it doesn't matter if it's your guy.
Yeah.
You're just going to remove their heads and say, this is who won.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. And very few people do that.
Well, if you that's because I'm not emotionally tied to the people. I'm just looking.
But I don't feel like the judging I feel like it's been pretty
Me too.
okay.
Me too.
The last
5 years.
Yeah.
I think it's really on the, even when there's a placing where I'm like, that wasn't a good place. A lot of times when I go back and I say, I can see that for sure. I always got to give the judge the benefit of the doubt, I think, really, simply because, it's not a computer screen. They're right there. They're experienced. They get it right for the most part, and it's subjective. You know what I mean? It's
you
subjective.
can see at certain points.
Yeah,
where you might not necessarily agree, but then when you make that assessment, you're kind of like, I can understand that point of view, right?
That's right. And unless someone who blows the show out of the water, you know what I mean? Who's dominant where it's like...
So when someone's leading the prejudging by 6 points and they go to a night show and look just as good, and
they should lose.
Yeah.
They should ask for a recount. Or you can go to the popular vote, which is the audience versus the electoral.
Of course. Just don't bring back the challenge round, right?
Yeah, the challenge round.
All right. Well, thanks, Chris. We appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me on.